Campfire chat today. Obviously, we've also got today. We also got Diablo 2 Season 10. That's later today. Like 8 standard questions. We'll hang out and chat a little bit before the season starts too. Why not? And we're going to be doing 8 Amazons, so it's going to be fun. Hopefully all 8 of the Amazons that signed up on the sheet will actually show up to the launch day. That'd be great. Supposedly this Campfire chat is supposed to be about Season 8 today. We're going to learn about some of the Season 8 stuff that's coming up. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot my song is on. It's a good song, though. It's a good song. It's a good song. It is a good song. But I forgot it was on. I actually can't hear it. That's the funny thing. So, like, the way that the music plays, I can't hear it. It's, like, sent through the thing. It would probably be better if I could hear it. That way I would know I was, like, you know, like trying to talk over a super loud song. Anyway, what I was trying to say was, today we're going to be going over the 2.20 Campfire chat. I'm pretty sure this is for Season 8. So this is going to be the Season 8 stuff, and then there's also going to be, obviously, Diablo 2 Resurrected Season 10 coming up. We got a really fun day planned today for the Amazon. We're going to do 8 Amazons. We got our own little harem running. The harem of Amazons, a harem of Manazons. A harem of Manazons. It should be fun. We're gonna spread out the groups like pretty heavily so that we have like one of every single Amazon. That's gonna be pretty cool. Judging from our sign up sheet here, we have one magic arrow / physical boson. We have one poison javazon. We have one lightning javazon. We have one Valkyrie's on. We have one exploding arrows on, one fend impales on, one freezing arrow, and one undecided. So we got lots of different choices. And basically we're going to have like one of every single element of damage there. We've got fire, we've got lightning, we've got ice, we've got magic, we've got physical, we've got poison. I mean, like, we basically got every single element of damage there. It's pretty good. How many people do we have signed up on the sheet so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. So we got 27 people so far, divided up into teams. It looks like a couple are hardcore, so we can subtract a couple here or there. So like 26 or like 25. Let's bring it down to 25 because there was like 2 hardcore players. Divided by 8 is like 3.125 teams. So 25 divided by 7. I guess we end up working at anyway because we got one 8-person team. So we take that to -8 and then take 17 and divide that by like 2 gives us 8.5. 17 divided by 3 gives us 5.66. So like we're pretty close to having like multiple teams. How did I lose 100 subs? What, from my YouTube channel? I don't know. Probably accounts getting deleted. I've been having a lot of like bot comments. Like occasionally I just get a bunch of bot comments, so it's a very good possibility that I just get like random bots that are getting deleted from my channel. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Just like a bunch of random bots getting deleted from my channel. It happens. I don't know where these bots come from. Like India or something. I don't know. Like there's just a lot of them sometimes. There's just so many bots and I can't handle them all. They keep posting comments on like my pages about stupid stuff like Bitcoin wallets. Like they're trying to get help with their Bitcoin wallets and then like they're trying to scam people out of money through their Bitcoin wallets. That's been the most recent one, like just a bunch of those people spamming those Bitcoin messages. Crypto department nonsense. Hmm. Hmm. I hope they've got some like plans to address some of the problems with season 7, which was like that season 7 was ridiculously easy. I don't know how to say it other than like season 7 was probably the easiest season I've ever seen. It felt like I blew through season 7 so fast. I made like 6 characters, 7 characters, or whatever, like, and just kind of like just absolutely blew through season 7. Had all my characters leveled up, maxed out gear, like tested out everything. Was running like 100 freaking Paragon, the pits, and like it was I don't know. I mean, usually when they do season launches, they're gonna talk about like new unique items that are coming, specific changes that they're planning on making. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't see. I don't even know if they feel like the spam of items that they had was even like too like bad. Like, I don't even think they understand. Like, it was so bad that people were complaining. They're like, "There's too many items dropping. What is wrong with you guys?" Hmm. Try to pull up all my stuff so I can start copying down some of this information when it comes out. Gotta get all my windows open. I got so many windows open. I need another monitor. I got like 3 monitors. I need a fourth monitor. Where's my fourth monitor at? What am I playing on reset for D2? On D2, I'm playing the magic arrows on. Yellow and blues are pointless because they made them pointless. I mean, that's stupid. I don't know why they did that. Like, wasn't always the case. Yellows used to be amazing. I don't understand the point of making everything like that drops on the ground basically trash. That's essentially what they've gone through the process of doing. They're like, oh yeah, you know those blue items? Yeah, those are trash. Oh yeah, you know those yellow items? Oh yeah, those are trash. Oh yeah, you know those ancestral items? Oh yeah, those are trash. I mean, legendary items? Oh yeah, those are trash. Oh yeah, you know those ancestral items that only have 1 greater affix? Oh yeah, those are trash. Am I talking about D4 or PoE2? Um, PoE 2 has a reset. Did they announce their reset? When is the PoE 2 league reset? I don't see it. Oh, trash blues and yellows? I mean, I'm talking about Diablo 4 at the moment. We're in a Diablo 4 stream, so talking about Diablo 4. Um, but like, I don't know what the purpose is of making everything trash. Like, I don't understand. Like, they go through the process of literally like ruining everything in the game that they could possibly ruin. Like, magic items equal trash, right? They've been trash since the beginning of Diablo 4. Yellow items used to be literally the best slot items in the game, and they have literally turned them into trash. Then on top of that, like, and legendary items, which for the most part, legendary items are actually also all trash. um, even to the point that like the majority of the legendary items in the game, like are garbage. And then even going even further, like unique items, are also all trash. Like I don't understand what they're doing. Like they're literally just taking every single item in the game and they're making it trash. And then like the only items that are actually worth anything are ancestral legendary items. So let's just call them LIs. So because we're running out of space. So ancestral legendary items. However, ancestral legendary items are also trash. Because well, if they're not like 3-star ancestral legendary items or 2-star ancestral legendary items, then they're always going to be inferior to the other items. And the same thing goes for like ancestral uniques. They also end up being trash unless they're like double or triple greater affix. And so you just end up in this situation where it's like the only items that are good are literally double or triple GA legendary items or uniques. Like this is the only thing left in the game that's actually valuable. Everything else in the game at the moment is literally trash. Whew. I don't understand. Where's your mama and the campfire pole? I haven't put up a poll yet. There, we have a poll. Speaking of which, if you guys can help me out with an achievement over on one of my other streaming services, I'm trying to get like all my streaming services affiliated. I'm affiliated on Twitch. I'm affiliated on YouTube. I am affiliated on many platforms. I'm not affiliated on Kick yet. So if you guys can hop over to Kick and help me out with that, I need 75. I need 75 people on Kick. $75 people. That's it. I fixed it, Joy. I fixed it. There was a problem with Kick. It was like killing the stream and then opening it back up and then killing the stream and then opening it back up and then killing the stream and then opening it back up. I fixed it. I fixed it. I fixed it. Butt face. My girlfriend made some goulash, and I know you guys are jealous of my goulash. Don't even pretend you're not jealous of my goulash. Yes, it does. It's an affiliated. They pay for views, so that's exactly what I'm trying to get. So I can't apply for affiliate status and get paid until I have the appropriate number of subscribers and whatever. You know, it'll happen eventually. I was just trying to speed it along by forcing you guys to help me out. It'll happen eventually. You don't know if my face looks like my butt, so I don't know how to respond. Well, oh. Well, maybe you should get a mirror and, like, look. I bet you there's pimples in the same places. Pimple butt, pimple butt. Radioactive pimple butt. Does whatever a pimple butt can. Gonna be a pimple butt man. Alright, the stream should be starting here soon. I'm gonna unmute the they got a dancing demon. There you go. Dancing, 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 yeah. Dancing, 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 yeah. I'm a demon, so yeah. I'm a demon in the lane. Dancing, dancing, demon hands. Gonna sell your soul to me. Get your prizes in the knees. Oh baby, come on down and see, baby. Look at my horns, maybe I got all the dancing babies. Dancing, 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 yeah. Stare at me, I'm dancing, yeah. Golden chest, here I see. Give you all the cheats for me. Everything you ever wanted. Just need your soul in return, baby. Give me that soul. Give me that soul. 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 Soul, 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 give me that soul, 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 sack it out. Soul, soul, yank it out, soul, soul, soul. Gonna yank your soul, 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 right out your chest, soul, soul. Oh, thank you for the $5, Jessamine. I appreciate it.
Hello, Diablo community. Welcome to another Diablo 4 Campfire Chat. This is our PTR Campfire Chat for Season 8. My name is Adam Fletcher. I'm the Director of Community here. Of course, I'm joined by this panel. A lot of familiar faces. Do you guys want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Colin Feiner. I'm a design director on Diablo 4.
Hey, I'm Derek Nunez. I'm a lead seasons designer here on Diablo 4.
And hi, I'm Charles Dunn. I'm a class designer working on the final design team.
Awesome. And we're also joined by Ruben Marquez, aka Bloodshed. He's actually behind the scenes. He'll be playing through some gameplay that we're going to be showing off here in a little bit. Oh, there he is. He's saying hi, waving. We'll see more of him here in a little bit with maybe not Marak dancing more. We got to see a good minute and a half of him before the stream actually started. Crazy day. First, I do want to start off with that we had a smoothie delivery this morning, and Marcus is not here. As you can see, I'm here hosting this because he forgot my smoothie in the order. So I just kicked him off the stream. No, I'm just kidding. But I told him I'd bring it up because I'm like, I'm like, oh, my smoothie's not here. But either way, we have a lot to talk
Lord
about
Jesus, not his
regarding
smoothie.
season 8.
Oh my God.
And that's actually the end of the stream, so that's all I wanted to bring up.
Thank you.
No, we have a lot to talk about for Season 8 PTR, but I know a few other topics that we wanted to hit on was kind of related to some of the quality of life stuff that's going to be coming with this specific season based off of, feedback and things we've seen within the game. And also one big topic is around mid-season updates. It's actually something that a lot of people have been asking about, and we do want to give a little bit of an update on what mid-season updates will be going forward and how we're kind of thinking about it from here. So, Colin, did you want to talk a little bit about how we're planning on doing mid-season updates?
Yeah, I think first it's helpful to sort of talk about the history of the mid-season balance patch. Originally, when we had talked about mid-season, it was pretty early in the life cycle of Diablo 4. We would add a ton of items, and we do sort of envision doing a lot of big swings in terms of big nerfs to overperforming builds and big buffs to underperforming builds. But as we've seen, we've added more progression and things like Season 4 itemization, there's a lot more time investment in terms of getting your build online and really refining and optimizing it. And what we found is...
No, there's not.
when you put so much time into your character, it feels really bad when we nerf things, right? So Season 6 is a great example where you might have done so much work to temper your gear and masterwork your gear and level up those paragons that we were really hesitant to do like a big nerf swing as part of the mid-season balance patch. Sort of on the other hand, right, we didn't want to massively buff underperforming builds to match the overperforming builds because we didn't want to create this insane, sort of arms race and then we're at pit tier 9,000, right? It'd be ridiculous. So what we ended up doing was actually kind of like anemic number tweaks. Like they weren't really necessarily making a big impact. And we took a step back and sort of asked ourselves like, well, what are we actually getting out of this? What are you, the players, actually getting out of this? And I think we're at a sort of point where we want to pivot and adjust our philosophy a little bit. And I think we've already seen some of this philosophy come to life in Season 7.
Yeah, exactly. I know, especially in the beginning of the season, people probably saw us make some tweaks in the first couple weeks related to some really crazy numbers that... Maybe they weren't even numbers in some of the stuff that people saw in the start of the actual season.
Yeah. So all that is to say, I think really what we're going to start taking a look at is not doing massive swings in the mid-season, but instead focusing our efforts on the launch of a season. So we're going to take that time, and we're going to make sure that there's a much higher quality launch release, and taking a lot of that balance time and making sure that when we do launch a season, it's higher quality, right? We want the pit tier disparities to be a little bit lower. We want to make sure that, when a new season launches, the new builds that we're adding are going to be really effective, and there's a lot of new fun ways to play. This doesn't mean we're never going to balance or touch the game. It actually means we're just going to shift our efforts to the beginning of a season. Yeah. So early on, we're going to be pretty vigilant in terms of things that are underperforming or way overperforming and acting quickly on them.
Yeah, the goal here is really to get everything closer in terms of less egregious builds being super high up there. We saw that, I think, specifically in Season 6 with the Spiritborn, and it kind of stayed consistent that way. We know we got a lot of feedback of hey, this feels kind of poopy if the
that's right, poopy
is 30, 40
poopy
pit tiers below, and so the goal is really to kind of bring keep things more aligned, especially at the start of the season. So as Colin mentioned, in the first couple weeks, I know there's going to be more effort in putting tweaks during that time to really respect the players' time as well.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, that timing is really important because our mid-season updates in the past had come a month or a month and a half into the season once players have been really invested in their build. And now we're going to be much more focused on rapid updates, within a week or two after the season launch, to make sure that if we are making those adjustments, it is at a point where, hey, you're not complete with the season, you're not done yet, and you can adjust and you can make sure that your time is respected in that way.
Definitely. So to really clarify, when a season launches, I'll use Bloodwave as an example. That was something we saw pretty early on, and it was way too overtuned, right? You didn't even really have to invest in your character to get to a point where you're godlike. And that is something that we would probably act quickly on as a part of the next season, for example.
And I think like a big point of clarity is like if Bloodwave using that as an example is very much an S tier build right now in this season.
S plus.
S plus for sure. I think that the goal is not to immediately take it to F or even immediately take it to C or anything like that. It's really keep it still an S, but like also make sure that it's still like at least lined up with like the other builds that might be up there in that top tier.
Conversely, too, I just want to make it super clear. If we see things that we added that are new, for example, if the seasonal powers aren't performing in a way that feels really powerful and crunchy, we're going to be buffing those. So it's not only looking out for the S+, it's also looking for the things that missed the mark. So we're going to be buffing those also.
Awesome. Yeah, so I know that players at the start of Season 8 will see us be a lot more reactionary towards those first couple of weeks in the early part of that season. So yeah, just wanted to clarify that with players because we've seen a lot of questions about mid-season updates. Is this a mid-season update when they see a patch or something like that? And so going forward, I know that's going to be the plan as we look at updating the game in the future.
And if you hide things early, I will Liam Neeson your ass. I will know. I will know.
There you go. You heard it first. Colin's just waiting behind you. Just that's what he does.
Yeah, in the closet.
Yeah.
Like the little demon kid right behind you.
Exactly. The other thing that we want to talk about is kind of like state of the game, especially with Season 7, where we're at, and kind of how we're looking at that towards Season 8. I think one of the biggest points of feedback we've heard related to Season 7 is kind of the pace of the game. Sometimes you blink and you're level 20 and you're like, holy crap, what happened? So I know you wanted to talk a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So just sort of our perspective on Season 7 has been the progression is very fast. Way faster
too
than we
fast.
sort of expected. Part of it is a lot of the really cool new seasonal powers. Part of it's the headhunts being super lucrative and awesome. And part of it's also just like the seasonal journey and the reputation board. There's a lot of different ways to get a ton of power in Diablo 4. And what we've seen is compared to Season 6, which had a lot of positive feedback as part of our revamped progression model, is that a lot of that has sort of gone down the drain in terms of how fast players are chewing through some of the content. So we actually have a graph that we could look at. I apologize, this is terrible, but I just pulled it from the our sort of stat page. It's not the greatest, but this is a picture of Season 6. You can see on the y-axis here, it was taking roughly people around 15 to 17 hours on average to get to max level. We felt like that was a pretty good journey, right? Part of Diablo is that sort of zero to hero journey, and part of what's fun about leveling is you start to sort of form a build and find a lot of different pieces early on when you're still forming your character, where customization is really fun, right? You're not necessarily locked into a build. So we felt like that was a pretty good clip for hitting max level. It's on average, right? So you could either go faster or slower depending on sort of how much of a blaster you are. So we felt like that was a pretty good average, especially with difficulty tiers and your ability to sort of go faster or slower based on your pacing. And let's go to Season 7 now. And it nearly doubled. So you can see that it was taking about 9 hours on average, which is kind of insane, right? Again, this is the average. So if you're like a Wudijo of the world, it's probably more like 2 hours or like 30 minutes. And that was something that we definitely feel like has sort of missed the mark in terms of that initial journey. So we are going to be making some changes just to adjust for a lot of the seasonal power and things like that. We're not going to necessarily nerf the power of the seasonal power. We still want you to feel powerful, but we are going to essentially take a look at the 1 to 25 experience and just smooth that out a little bit, which is going to essentially make the leveling experience a little bit closer to Season 6. So it is going to be a slower from 1 to 25, but one thing we've done to sort of compensate that is we've taken a look at the itemization. We don't like that rares and sort of magic items immediately disappear after the first 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I think you kind of get to that point like we were talking about. If you get to like level 20, you blink and you're level 20, and then at the same time you blink and you're like, blues and yellows. I only look at oranges now, or like what's this other color? So I know that we have some changes that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, and again, like a lot of this is in the spirit of making sure that zero to hero journey is really satisfying, right? That's what makes it so awesome when playing Diablo, is that sort of, I start with nothing and become a god, right? So we are taking a look at the itemization so that it doesn't just feel like a success log from 1 to 25. What we're going to be doing is, oh, you know what? I'm going to jump actually into the legendaries really quick because it's really important, a really important part of this. The other thing that was contributing to this leveling pace was that players are getting a legendary every 3 to 4 minutes, and that's from 1 to 60. That's not just in the end game. And it just felt like legendary item quality was just too prevalent across the leveling journey. You didn't have you sort of hit max level. There was no journey to assembling your build. You just had everything as part of the Codex of Power. So we're also reducing the legendary rate from leveling. We're not really touching the end game legendary drop rates, but from leveling we are adjusting that. And to compensate that, to jump back into the magic and rares. We're making it so that magics can have up to 2 affixes. So sometimes you're going to find, you know, from your 1 to 25 journey, a pretty good magic item. It might actually be better than a rare, for example, because it might have dropped earlier for you. It might have higher eye power. And then we're also making it so that rares can sometimes have up to 3 affixes. And what that means is, you know, when you get a drop at level 35 from a Whisper Cache, right now, you know, in Season 7, it feels terrible when you don't get a legendary item because you just know that it's just not even worth looking at, right? But now that rare items can have up to 3 affixes, that means that you might have a really good imprintable base. It means all the rares that drop across the game from 1 to 60 could actually be pretty great gear for you.
I want to roll my
especially with
eyes
all
into
of
the
our
back of my
crafting
head.
options. So
They
we
never
think
should have
that
made this
helps
change in the
smooth out
first place, and now
1 to
they're
60 journey.
undoing it.
I will caveat that the rare quality is not the best at max level still. It's going to be a lower eye power, so you're not going to have to filter through a bunch of rares at max level. We're not.
This was literally a change that we fought tooth and nail when they made it and told them it was the stupidest change in the world and that nerfing the rare items into the dirt was the dumbest change ever. And here they are reverting the rare item change.
Go through these levels.
And then I know some of the other items we've been talking about have been like a little bit of that torment progression. We've seen, you know, drastic differences between like Season 6 to Season 7, and it's something I know we're making tweaks to.
Yeah, so the other half of Diablo is obviously the max level endgame, right? And we've heard a ton of feedback that, like, you know, it just feels like a weekend game right now. You can just blast through all the torment tiers. There's nothing that's really satisfying about it. There's nothing to work towards just because you're just getting so much power so frequently and just really crushing this content. So what we've done here is, if we go to the slide, we've actually given, actually let me jump into some of the stats here because I think it's really interesting. A lot of people got to Torment 4 very quickly. So on average, it was taking players around 15 hours to get to Torment 4. That's like roughly double how quickly it took in Season 6, which is kind of insane. Again, it's the culmination of seasonal powers and all this crazy stuff going on. And the other part of it is that 50% of players are actually hitting Torment 4. And just from a philosophy standpoint, we really want, like, whatever the hardest Torment tier is, in this case Torment 4, to be aspirational. And to us, that means around 10%. That means that, you know, if you're really Johnny Badass, you know, you need to be in the top 10% of players to actually get.
The problem is that they instituted Torment 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and Torment 1, 2, and 3 are basically trash. All of the difficulty modes they added are basically garbage. Everybody just goes straight to Torment 4.
Increased the Torment pit scaling, health by roughly 20% multiplicative, and then some damage increases.
Yeah, and that pit scaling is, every level of the pit is multiplicative on previous levels. So it's not just like, oh, whatever pit I was at, it's now 20% harder. It's actually like kind of stacking 20% every level. So and the end result is that, you know, a pit tier 100 is much harder than it was before. And
let's make the pits harder. That's the solution.
Harder to reach that absolute highest end, and gives you a little bit more for those builds and those blasters who are getting up to that highest pit tier. It's going to be quite a bit harder to get to quite that same level next season.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, sort of culminates in moving Torment 1 to pit tier 10 and effectively adding 10 pit tiers and increasing the multiplicative scaling of the pit tier scaling. Is the journey is going to be a lot more sort of satisfying. There's a lot more sort of peaks to climb. And it also means pit tier 150 is going to be very difficult. So difficult that I don't believe any of you will reach it. I don't know. I'll do something silly on.
He says
on
this
stream.
now.
I'll probably regret
that's
it.
signing up for doing something silly on stream.
And then like within the first week.
That's a challenge to all of you out there.
Yeah, you all can vote on the silly thing that I do. But conversely, I just want to cover this really
Bullet
quickly,
sponge
though.
monsters.
Torment 4 isn't going to be insanely harder than it was before. It's going to be roughly around pit tier 76 is on live right now, so Season 7. So think about the game that you're playing right now, Torment 4 is going to be about 11 pit tiers harder. So it's still achievable. It's just that upper end is also just going to be that much harder to sort of climb through.
Awesome. So we got a lot of changes coming for like torment scaling. Obviously, some itemization changes. So the big thing being, as you're leveling up, you're going to see a lot more opportunities to find items, especially with the changes to blue and yellow items there. And then, of course, as you mentioned, the big caveat is like at 60, the item power on legendaries is still going to be the best method and the best items to actually grab. So yeah, lots of big changes coming up. Great to actually walk through all of them. I know we have a ton more to talk about specifically around the new season. So thank you, Colin. We're gonna jump over to Derek, because I know we do want to talk about the new season and what players are actually going to be experiencing in this PTR. Again, just to redefine what PTR is for some people, because I got messages from people going like, well, PTRs are sometimes buggy, and I'm like, well, it's a PTR, so it is like a beta or an alpha, an early look into a game, so we expect that. There will be like known issues, and we'll actually have those known issues on our forums, so people can actually see them. You can report bugs. It actually helps when you guys actually jump into a PTR and experience it, and give us feedback, because that helps tweak the start of the season for the better, essentially. But with Season 8, we will be having, of course, a PTR, and we'll be talking about it here in a second. And if you remember with Season 7, we kind of had this like this overarching theme with like big changes in that season. One was specifically around what was mostly focused around like the whispers. And of course with Season 8, we have another overarching theme that we're really going to be talking about, where we'll be kind of even seeing an old friend. So Derek, do you want to chat about it here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, as you mentioned, seasons are kind of like our opportunity to shine focus on an existing system and really amplify or celebrate or enhance it within that respective season. So we've seen that with Season 4 with the HellTide revamps and whatnot. As you mentioned, Season 7 was the emphasis on the Tree of Whispers and Bounties. So as Colin kind of mapped out the journey to the end game, we wanted to shine focus on a major end game feature, namely surrounding our bosses. And we have a lot of really cool bosses in the world of Sanctuary, but more specifically the Lair boss system, or as some of us, and we reference it to as the boss ladder. So Season 8 focus is on the Lair boss system. We're going to be doing a whole mess of new things to it. So we're adding new bosses, new mechanics, quality of life updates, and a revamped materials loop that I'm going to be covering throughout the course of the segment. So first I just want to kind of talk about the new bosses and additions to the roster. So when we're talking about the Lair bosses, these are like the biggest, baddest bosses of Sanctuary. So we're looking at how do we add to the roster in a meaningful way, but also which bosses do we add that are impactful and versatile enough to carry the entire theme of a season. So with that in mind, we're just asking ourselves a question of which are the right bosses to bring. You mentioned an old friend. So we had to choose something that was versatile. We had to choose something that was big, bad. So that's where we go to Belial. Yes, Season 8, Belial's return. Belial's back in Sanctuary. He is climbing his way to the top of the Lair boss ladder. He is the new, exalted pinnacle challenge within the ladder. He is the highest challenge, the highest reward, and he also has some very unique reward-related tricks up his sleeve that I'll cover a little bit later. So for now, just know that Belial's back, and he's also just not joining the party alone. He's bringing a couple of friends from our Vessel of Hatred. So first up is our buddy Urvar. So Urvar's joining the roster of the Lair boss ladder system. He's going to be filling out kind of like the lowest rung of the ladder. So he's going to be joining the party with the Varshans and the Beast and Ice and whatnot. So Urvar's back, and we're also bringing back another Vessel of Hatred character, the Harbinger of Hatred.
I'm so happy for this.
Yeah, no, this one.
I love this fight.
We're going to see a little bit more of this guy in just a little bit, but the Harbinger of Hatred will be joining kind of the second rung of the ladder with the likes of Duriel and Andariel. And one thing I just do want to stress is that both of these Vessel of Hatred bosses will dip into the shared loot pools of other bosses within their respective tier, but also have some additional bonuses that is specific to the Vessel of Hatred like being a great source of tributes and runes. But Belial, for all intents and purposes, is available to everyone, and he is just the new pinnacle challenge of the boss ladder.
So you're saying even harder than Duriel and Andariel right now. He's going to be harder, more rewarding than even those.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, wonderful.
I had to roll my eyes.
Yeah, new top tier. Belial, Lord of
Harder.
Lies.
Oh, yes.
And I'm really excited about this because I think this is going to pair really well with the sort of leveling journey in the torment progression where we're making things a little bit more aspirational, a little bit more challenging. It's really like a return to the heart of the Diablo experience, right? Sort of leveling from nothing and taking on these huge big bads to claim their loot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's kind of like the inherent cool thing about the Lair boss ladder system is that you start with like the initiate level floor, you take those on, you graduate to the next level, and then now you have kind of Belial just always there looming over you. That's kind of like the aspirational, yes, I get to go fight him now. But for those who know about our buddy Belial, Lord of Lies, you know that he kind of appears in different forms. So this is what we're kind of referencing as like his supreme form that appears at the top of the Lair boss ladder. But he also has his, I guess, smaller, more agile, compact form. I like to affectionately refer to him as Baby Belial, but this is Belial in his more compact form. And throughout the course of the season, or I guess just the Lair boss mechanics, he's going to be popping up all over the place. But I'm really excited about this version of Belial's new role in the Lair boss ladder system in the sense that defeating and looting any of the Lair bosses has a small percent chance to initiate a surprise ambush from Belial himself. And this is really cool because this is kind of like a 2 for the price of 1 payout. So let's say I fight Andariel, I defeat Andariel, I loot Andariel, and I get this special ambush triggered. And if I defeat Belial, I'll get a double payout of Andariel's loot. So I got the loot from Andariel, and I get another payout of Andariel's loot from defeating Belial himself. So
that's huge.
It's a really exciting kind of just like injection of some fun novel mechanics within the Lair boss system that we're doing over and over and over again. So again, really excited about this update. And again, in the spirit of teasing kind of the rewards relationship and connection that Belial has, this version of Belial has a very special connection to his larger supreme form in the Lair boss ladder that I'll touch upon a little bit later. A lot of teasing that I'm kind of just setting up. There's a lot to go over.
We're going to lie to everybody.
Yeah,
We're
just
gonna-
kidding. Yeah, we're like,
That's part of
yeah.
the theme.
Belial's actually not here. This is a lie. Yeah. Yeah. So that was that. That was the the Belial ambushes. But I also want to talk about some additional major sweeping updates that's coming in with just the system as a whole. And I want to talk about the summoning materials. As we know, the way that the system currently functions is, you do activities, you get summoning items, you go visit the boss, and you plop them in, you summon the boss, and then, that's kind of just a flow. So when we're looking at the Lair boss system, we don't just look about ways that we can add to it. We also look about opportunities to resolve or reduce some frictions, or just areas for improvement that we can have with it. Since it's a very mature system, we get a lot of feedback that we diligently ingest and talk about and whatnot on our team. So when it came to the summoning materials, we identified a couple of key points of, I guess, friction that players are currently having with it. One is, since you have to ante up your summoning materials just to summon the boss, it's kind of a feels bad moment when you realize that you just wasted, X number of materials to find out that you can't defeat Duriel. Like, okay, that's wasted materials, back to the loop. Maybe I'll fight him another week or two, depending how fast you are. And it's just generally not
Who cares about wasting materials?
For myself or for players and whatnot.
Yeah, I definitely have run into this where it's like, I'm only going to fight the boss when I can guaranteed win against it. Right. So you never actually.
And how do you know
fight-
that too? Until
how do you know?
trial and error.
Like you never really have that like actual fun fight with the boss where you're like, oh, am I going to lose or not? Because it's like, well, I'm just not going to risk it.
Yeah, I've had at times where I'm like, I don't know if my build's quite ready, so I'll try to fight a boss. And then I'm like, oh, this is really tough. Like I die a couple times, and I'm like, do I really want to keep like retrying it?
Yeah.
Because like, well, I've already invested. I'm kind of committed. So with this new way, I don't need to invest those right up front. I can just go and fight them right away and see how strong I am without risking the materials.
Yeah. So we're going to cover like the specificities of the new system and how it all works in a little bit. But the other kind of pain point that we identified with the current system is also just in regards to like the party play. I think my little earpiece is coming out of my ear. There you go.
Yeah, it's a common theme on this.
Yeah.
The earpiece just pops out all the time.
We do it live here. Yeah, so the other element is like just the party play, right?
Yeah.
And as much as we want to kind of like entrust in our fellow man and whatnot and engage in the boss rotations and whatnot, we have seen, you know, some areas of friction where certain players don't engage in the boss rotations and they don't submit their materials. Like no one watching the stream would ever be guilty of this, but that does happen. It's shocking, but it does happen.
Belial is on the other side of the computer. It's like, I'll definitely pay the next rotation.
And then they leave and they take all their stuff. So that was another kind of area of friction that we experienced with the current summoning materials. So I think that's kind of enough of a preface just to set the tone for where the system is going now that we're introducing in Season 8. So
what are we doing?
What do we, I don't know, let's find out. All right, so Lair keys. So summoning materials are effectively being repurposed in their roles as a new item called Lair keys. And what Lair keys do, well, I'll just start with this, is since there's no more summoning materials, that just means that effectively all Lair bosses are free to summon. So if you're not sure if you're ready to take on a Varshan or a Duriel, just go visit them. You know, kind of use them as a bit of a training dummy to see if you can actually, you know, take them on. But what Lair keys now do is they grant access to the defeated boss's hoard or their treasure chest that they drop. So now I'll just walk you through kind of the new flow. Imagine this with me. So you enter Duriel's lair. You walk up to his altar and you just click the altar to summon him. Again, no cost to you. You fight Duriel, you defeat him, out pops his hoard, and now the Shards of Agony, which is now the Lair key, you use that to open his hoard and get all the oodles of loot that you went to go visit him to do.
And these work like HellTide chests, so you have to pay in order to get the loot, and the only loot, the loot comes from the person who pays.
Yeah, that's a very important distinction, is that now every member in the party needs to have the appropriate type and quantity of the Lair keys to access the loot in the hoard.
And you can still trade your keys with friends and things like that. If you have 9999, you know, Duriel mats, you can split them in half and give them to your buddies to open the chest.
Yeah, absolutely. Sharing is caring in the system here.
And then, of course, if you're really lucky, you'll get a Belial ambush and you can get double loot.
Yeah, there you go. So a lot of new avenues and ways to kind of experience the system. So we also have the Stygian Stones. So Stygian Stones in Season 8 is living a new life now in the sense that we wanted to ensure that every boss in the first rung of the ladder, our Initiate Lair bosses, the Varshans, Grigors, Beasonites, Lord Zirs, and Urvars now, that they're all equally relevant to getting you to climb to the next rung. So in addition to, you can take a screenshot of this chart here. I won't try and walk through the entire thing, but now Stygian Stones is a drop that can drop from any of the Initiate Lair boss tier here, and you can crush them into your Lair key of choice for the second rung of the Lair bosses. So let's say I fight Grigor, I get a Stygian Stone, and I want to go fight Andariel. I can just crush that into some Andariel keys, and again, just giving a little bit more flexibility in how players actually engage and progress through the Lair boss ladder. Again, as we know, all roads lead to Belial, Lord of Lies, you know, the top of the pinnacle of the ladder at the end. Ooh, there's a lot. All right, final thing here is the item bloat reduction. So again, with this new system, we're consolidating all the Lair keys to one Lair key type per boss. So no more kind of managing two different materials and so I have enough material, I have 2 of these, 5 of these. It's just one material per boss. We're increasing the item stacking of these to 99, again, to cut down on some of that bloat. And one of my personal favorites here is that we're also normalizing the counts of required Lair keys per, boss rank. So all the Initiate tiered bosses, they require the same quantity of their respective keys. So too the degraders and whatnot. So again, it's just cutting down on the total mental math and memory that is kind of affecting the, I guess, like on-ramping enjoyment of the current system.
Yeah, and Andariel only needs one material, for example, as part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see in this chart here, Pincushion Doll, Shard of Agony, or the Stygian Stone is kind of the wild card that you can crush to any one of them. So let's say if Andariel needed 4 Pincushion Dolls, you have 3 of them, but you have 1 Stygian Stone, you can crush that into a Pincushion Doll and go get Andariel's Hoard. All right, that was a pretty big overview and a lot of talking in charts, but I want to take the time to throw it over to Ruben and behind the scenes here and kind of just get into just what this all looks like as part of just the in-game flow.
Hello, Derek. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome. Yeah, let me open up the menu for you.
All right, cool. So in this walkthrough, I'm just going to show you kind of, or we're going to show you rather, the new flow to access the Lair bosses with a little bit of a sneak peek of the Harbinger of Hatred. So one thing I want to just call out real quick is kind of some of the quality of life updates that we've taken to just the map presentation and the boss dungeon tooltips themselves. And I'll kind of just go through these in kind of an itemized order. So first, all of the boss dungeon map icons have been given a little bit of a beautiful beautification treatment. So they're a little bit more bold, red, and easier to identify against the sea of other icons on the map. But now I want to talk about the tooltip, and I'll just start from the top and go make my way down. So the first quality of life update that we added was just simply printing the name of the boss that resides within the dungeon. One of the kind of ambiguities that we had with the previous version of this system was not knowing specifically which boss lives in which dungeon. Like, oh, who does live in the Gaping Crevice, or who lives in the Malignant Tunnels?
Oh, I know who lives
so
in the Gaping Crevice.
The Harbinger of Hatred lives in the Harbinger's Den. This is probably not the best example, because who else would live in the Harbinger's Den?
Wow.
But he technically does live in every single one of them.
You don't know where he's at.
But yeah, so you can see here now, we print the name of the Lair boss that lives in the dungeon for a little bit easier find. Inside of the main body description, we also just give a little bit more guidance and information on what the value of defeating this boss is, and they're directing players to the fact that they are a source of ancestral and mythic unique items. The last two updates here are some of my favorites of this, is that we also display now the required items that you need to access the Lair boss's hoard. If you recall the previous iteration, that was not apparent to you, so you would kind of like waste the time traveling to the boss just to find out that, oh, I have 3 or 4 Abhorrence Hearts, so I can't fight the boss yet. So we wanted to, again, just smoothen out the access and onboarding to the feature. And I think my absolute favorite update of all this is, you see at the bottom, we now have the ability to travel directly into the dungeon directly from the map. So again, no more teleporting to the nearest waypoint. We just pop directly in and just get into it. And we have Ruben loading into here, and I think this is a great time to just outline. I've talked about the new bosses, I've talked about new mechanics, but we have a collection of really great existing Lair bosses. Mm-hmm. And one thing that we wanted to take as an opportunity within the season was to also enhance every other Lair boss that exists within the system. So every Lair boss is getting a bit of a difficulty spike and new mechanics to, again, freshen up the fights that we've been knowing and love. So if you fought the Varshans or the Duriels or even the Liliths over and over and over again, all this is in the PTR, so it's definitely worth checking them out again to see what's changed and how much different their experience is.
Yeah, Duriel has some messed up surprises.
Yeah, Duriel eats you.
Why did you spoil it?
It's definitely worth checking out the mechanics. But
he
again,
always
so
eats
this
you.
is the Harbinger of Hatred. And just as a reminder, one thing that we do when we add a boss to the Lair boss system is we don't just take the carbon copy campaign version of it. We also take the opportunity to inject some really crazy mechanics. So I don't necessarily want to kind of spoil the surprises of the Harbinger of Hatred's mechanics here, but he does get pretty wild. This is a spectacle and a half of a fight, and I'm really excited to have players check it out. So. Yeah, and I think this is about all we might want to show of this guy.
Yeah, we probably won't go into it. We don't want to spoil all the mechanics and everything. Even though we're kind of also spoiling a little bit of like a rogue build.
Keen-eyed amongst you might have noticed some interesting things on Rogue, which I'll get to in a bit.
Yes. It's spoil or it's teasing to maintain
teasing. That's
teasing everyone along here. But yeah, so now that was a sneak peek at the Harbinger of Hatred. We just talked about, again, in case you missed it, all Lair bosses are getting a boost in both their performance and just the mechanics that they have.
Yep.
But let's, we fast forwarded past, the Harbinger of Hatred's fight. So let's imagine a world that, we fought through the whole thing, we killed him, and let's show off now what to expect from the Horde loot flow. So we have some footage here with this very shiny chest.
Very shiny chest.
So we have 4 abhorrence hearts, and now we can open up the chest. Again, each one of us needs to have it. And I mentioned that Belial has a chance to surprise ambush you after opening any horde. And here you go. Look at this. This is meant to be a relatively rare occurrence. But you know, this is the magic of pre-recorded footage. We can make the impossible happen. And in this case, again, painting the full picture of the scenario, you defeated the Harbinger of Hatred, you got the Horde, you opened it, you got Baby Belial, you killed him, and now you get another proc of, double the loot, double the fun.
Yeah, double the loot of what you just essentially got.
Double the loot and double the fun.
Payment of the Lair keys that you deposited. So it really is, you know, kind of a
Why is his
2-for-1
nose
sale
so
that
shiny?
And if you noticed, you might have seen
He has the
we did
shiniest
keep
nose
bonus
I have
for
ever
party
seen.
play. So while you do have to
This
pay
is
to
so
get the chest
shiny.
and open up the horde, we kept a bonus chance for loot. So we love that people enjoy fighting the bosses as parties, and we know that that's a fun social experience in Diablo. So what we've done is the hordes themselves will have bonus chances for loot when you are in a party, and that does scale with party members.
Yep, no, absolutely.
So shiny.
So, yeah, a lot of loot everywhere to give. And on the topic at the very top, I teased that Belial had a very special kind of role in the reward structure, different from every other boss. So defeating the ambush version of Belial is not just lucrative in the sense that it's a double payout. He is also the sole source of the Lair keys that you need to access his supreme form at the top of the ladder, the Supreme Form's Horde. So I want to show off now the Supreme Belial's very green chest here. So you can see here, it doesn't open up right away. I have some options. So the really cool thing about the Supreme Belial's Horde is that you can set it to mimic the reward drops of any other existing Lair boss. So let's say if you are trying to do Duriel runs to get the special stuff that he has, and you can set your Belial to drop the Duriel loot, and he will do so at an enhanced rate. So it's even better than if you just went to go fight Duriel specifically.
Yeah, so if you're really targeted farming in those specific uniques, you get, you know, this Duriel, this version of Belial just gives you a much better chance of doing that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just that in terms of like his value, he also guarantees 1 ancestral unique drop per kill. And he's also a really great source of the Infernal Compasses. So, you know, if you want to, you know, empower your Infernal Horde runs and whatnot, it's never a waste of time to go visit the Belial Supreme at the top of the ladder here.
Yeah, and this is in Torment 2, and it all scales with Torment. So
Exactly,
the higher
yeah.
the Torment, the more loot you'll get.
Yeah, what we're seeing in this footage is just Torment 2. So obviously, like Torment 4, you would get more loot out of it because it's a much more difficult challenge at Torment.
It is much
for
more.
sure.
Yeah, it scales with the Torment tiers, and also if we were in a party in this example here, we'd get even more chances of great stuff out of it as well.
That's exactly right.
All right, cool. Well, that is the Lair key and the Lair boss. just have a lot of things to cover here.
Yeah, I know we want to talk a little bit about kind of it's funny because people saw it as Ruben was on the map because they probably saw a term like with apparitions and everything.
Right, yeah, there's a lot of teasing in this.
I know, a lot of teasing. This is what happens when
planned.
you use a live build and everything's fine.
Yeah, it's exciting. But one thing before we hop into the next, I do want to reestablish so that everything that we just talked about as far as what we're introducing to the Lair boss system and all the mechanics, new bosses and whatnot, that is permanent. That is just how the system works now. So everything is getting introduced in Season 8, but it's not leaving beyond Season 8. It is just there.
It'll be an Eternal also.
It'll be an Eternal. That's just how the system works. What the next segment, though, is all the seasonal specific stuff. So again, as Adam mentioned, you might have seen some Apparition incursion things pop up. So let's get into the first kind of seasonal related content here. Oh, the top says Lair boss. Okay. Anyways, we do it live. Apparition incursions. Apparition incursions is a new open world seasonal event to empower your leveling journeys and also kind of just spread the narrative and dramas of Belial is back on Sanctuary and he's spreading his own sense of, twisted realities across the land. He's always in his effort to try and plunge, the world of Sanctuary into his realm of lies, and he's doing it through this fast-paced boss rush style event that kind of takes the spirit of the open world social boss play of the Blood Maiden and making a really cool kind of just really fast-paced, bam, 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 boss rush style event. So I think we have some footage here just to put some visuals to it. So, this is an area of the world that Belial's apparitions are kind of overtaking. And throughout the course, players are going to be defeating these apparitions to draw out up to 2 of his apparition bosses. This is pulled from a total of 10 potential apparition bosses. So each time you go through this, you'll fight 2 of them kind of randomized. So each time should be a little bit different. And all of this is leading up to a showdown against Belial himself. So again, it's celebrating bosses. It's 3 bosses per event. And the idea for this is that they're up pretty much 24/7. So we want to just encourage that, hop on the boss train, ride it to the end, find the next one, and just, go to your heart's content. And, celebration of bosses this season, really.
Absolutely. And what do you get for killing those bosses?
Oh, you're going to get some cool stuff, Colin. Let's go to the next slide. That kind of leads us into the collectible boss powers, or seasonal powers. Spoiled it right there.
It's already on the slide.
It's already on the slide, yeah.
You're fine.
So the theme for the powers theme for season 8 is boss powers. So Belial being kind of like the illusionary character he is, mimicry and whatnot. In season 8, players will be acquiring the ability to steal and mimic the powers of up to 24 targeted bosses across Sanctuary. So we have 24 collectible powers that are gathered from the first time kill of targeted bosses across the full content from level 1 till the very top. So you asked about, what do the apparition bosses give you? They're, aside from the loot and all that stuff, they're also your first source of your first 10 boss powers that make up the magic tiers. You can kind of see in this little chart here. Graduating from the apparition bosses, you now go into the world bosses. So each one of our 3 world bosses have a power associated with them, and then so too do each of our Lair bosses, capped off with Lilith with her own boss power that you can acquire.
It's like a ladder in the boss powers.
It's definitely celebrating the progression journey of bosses from the moment you log in to the moment that you're powerful enough to take down Lilith.
Yeah.
Belial being kind of like the star of the season, he's special. He gets 2 powers because that's just how he rolls.
Cheating.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool things about this kind of structure, it's a very structured power climb, so little ambiguity of like, how do I get the Wandering Death's power? Well, go fight and kill him. It's just that nice little structured journey that kind of is a nice little stamp collection just to reward each kind of a tier of progression that you make across your leveling and endgame journeys. But that's not just the coolest part of it, in my opinion here, is that it's also just how the powers work this season. So you can see that we have 4 slots, the top slot and 3 little kind of like supporting slots. So the really cool thing is that each one of these powers have 2 sides to them that activate depending on which power slot you put them in. So you can have up to one main you can have up to 1 power slot into your main power slots, or you can have up to 3 powers slot into your modifier slots. And I just want to dive into this Wandering Death's chest beam example here. So if I were to slot the Wandering Death's power into the main power slot, I would actually unlock the full representation of his iconic chest beam power. So the main powers is activating and unlocking the actual iconic power that is representative of the boss. We're going to show kind of a little bit of a showcase after this, but that's how that respective area of the power system works. The modifier slots, though, are cool and powerful in their own right, though. So let's say I don't necessarily need the Wandering Death's main power for whatever utility purposes. I can still get value out of the fact that I own it by slotting it into the modifier slots, which activates kind of like the side B of it, which is more of a supporting thing. So in this case, it's your main power. Now it empowers your main power to instantly execute non-boss enemies when they're within a certain threshold of life. So it's not just 24 ways to kind of express your sense of power this season. It's 48 because each of these powers have kind of like 2 sides to them.
Yeah, it's really like build your own boss power.
Essentially, yeah, it's a lot of fun just kind of like mix match slot around and see what kind of a concoction you come up with, and that's something that I'm particularly interested in going to the PTR. Is like, what are some of the favorite combinations, or ideally, what are the favorite combinations based off of the circumstance that you're going into?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Charles.
One thing that I'm really excited about the system is in previous seasonal power systems, we sometimes found as you got really high, Paragon levels, your build is like super powerful. The relative impact of some of the seasonal powers was a little lower. They didn't really scale with you as well as we really wanted to. We've done an update in this season where these boss powers are going to scale with your Paragon level as you're leveling up, and so they actually are going to get more powerful as you get more powerful. Right. So the exact number that you as soon as you unlock it, maybe is not the most powerful thing, but as you're powering up, it's still going to be relevant to your build at every stage of your progression.
Yeah, it's really good. And I like the fact that the powers don't kind of just live on their own little island. Like they get ingrained into the other systems that we're engaging with. So that's the high level of the boss powers for Season 8. And I want to toss it back to Ruben for just kind of a little bit of a live showcase of them.
Hey, Derek, thanks for all that. That was great, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. What do you got for us?
Well, I get the fun job of showcasing all these powers today, but I must confess I got my smoothie, so I'm a little jacked up today. So I'll try not to rub it in.
I'm so happy you got your smoothie.
Yeah.
So happy for you.
I'll try not to talk too fast.
I'm thrilled.
Let's go ahead and open up our inventory here, and you'll notice on the left side, a familiar tab is our seasonal tab, which is boss powers. So from this tab is where you'll be kind of interacting with your powers throughout the season. Like Derek mentioned, you can drag and drop them, equip them on the fly. There's no penalty. I think the team and everybody wants you to experiment and have fun with the builds. You can also upgrade them by hovering over them. There's a corresponding button here. On PC, it's F, so go ahead and push that to upgrade them. And yeah, so the top slot is your main slot, like Derek mentioned. This is where your main powers go, and all the bottom ones are your modifier slots. So right here, Derek's favorite was the Wandering Death's chest beam. So as a modifier, right, you can execute enemies, but as soon as you drag it over here, boom, now it's a channeled ability. And you'll notice right away, it's a prominent beam. Yeah, it works well with channeled abilities. It only works with channeled abilities, actually. And it's kind of cool with Dance of Knives because you can adjust and do these micro adjustments to kind of maximize the effect on your target, just to keep it on them a little bit longer.
Yeah, and as you can kind of tell, we're not necessarily going for subtlety in terms of the expression of these powers this season.
I'm dying. Someone in chat's like, Goku? Oh my god.
I guess we'll call it real quick. Just one thing I absolutely love is just the animations of the UI itself, and you slot these little like eyeball powers into the little eye sockets, and it blinks, and it's just kind of just fun across the board, just engaging with this.
And pops.
Yeah. So what do we got next?
The next one I want to showcase is Lilith's Wind of Hate, just because probably most of us have died to this before, her spike ability from the ground. And it works on almost every skill. So you can see as soon as I dash here, I get the spikes. With Barrage, you get the spikes. So you can slot it in almost every build and have fun with it. Even Dance of Knives, really cool ability there. Let's see what else we got. Another fun one, there's a transformative ability, is Juriel's Burrow. So it completely changes your evade skill, and you burrow underground. You deal damage when you go into the ground and when you exit. But the real cool thing is you become immune while underground, and you can control the direction.
Oh, that's awesome.
Is awesome. Yeah,
that's one of my absolute favorite. I love that one.
You can stand still if you like, or whatever, and it scales. As you get more evade charges, you get more burrows. So I'm sure there's a lot of, especially adding 3 new bosses with all kinds of crazy effects. You can now dodge them a little bit easier, which is great. I'm sure there's some good use cases for that.
Yeah, and even just right there, I want to just chime in and just say that, we showed off a power that procs off of the evade. We showed one that procs off channeling, and one that procs off any skills. Like one of the goals going into the design of these powers was to just remove any ambiguity about how do I actually proc it. We wanted to make it as utility focused and straightforward as possible, so that players can really easily digest and how they work it into their builds.
Yeah, that's a great point. Urvar's Bombs is probably my personal favorite, as I like making builds and interesting builds. This definitely supports ultimate builds, and as you can see on the screen here, it lowers your cooldown by 5 seconds, which is great, and gives you a nice damage component to kind of top off on it. So we're playing Rogue, and Death Trap is an ultimate ability. So as soon as I pop it, you'll see Urvar's Bombs kind of shoot out, and you get that lower cooldown effect as well, so it's great.
Ooh. And you get 2 Death Traps. I wonder how he's doing that.
How you got
That's on me. That's on me, guys. Yeah. All the teasing on the stream. And finally, before they play the walk-off music, I think I could showcase, let's do Grigor's Lightning Square. So if you notice, Lilith's skill had like a slight cooldown. This one scales with your build really well. So the more you can cast core skills, the more you get these iconic kind of lightning strike panels shoot out from your character. So you can imagine you can just go full Thunder God here the whole time with your builds. So yeah, I think that's all I can showcase today. But I appreciate the time.
No, thank you. That was awesome. Yeah, so again, those are just like a kind of a sneak peek at just a handful of the powers. Again, throughout the course of the PTR, you'll get to experiment and engage with all of them. And again, looking forward to the feedback and just just general notes of how you incorporate into your builds and what really excites you. So I think that's pretty much the wrap up for all the content coming in Season 8 that persists beyond and
all the Season 8 stuff that will be available in PTR for players to actually jump into. We're still going to be talking about a few more things as we get closer to Season 8 with the launch of the actual season itself. So Derek, thank you so much for walking us through everything. And of course, with a new season and a new PTR, we have a lot of changes that are coming to classes, specifically like the Rogue, which we saw someone doing there.
We can just skip. We'll just skip it.
There's other classes to talk about.
So Charles over here is actually going to go through all the class changes that players will be able to experience and test out during the PTR.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's tons of new bosses to fight, so how are you going to fight them, right? So let's talk about some class updates that are coming. First, I want to talk about some updates that are going to affect all classes in some way. These are kind of a bit more generic updates. So talking about ultimate scaling, this is something that we introduced in Season 7, the current live season, where as you get to rank 5 of the ultimate skills, some of them had mechanics that allowed you to crank up their damage by building different stats, right? So if you got more damage while fortified, then your blood wave is going to do more damage, for instance. We think that's really cool. It enabled a lot of very powerful builds, and so we're looking at ensuring that those don't like really eclipse every other option in the game. We still love that those are powerful builds. We love that you're playing them. We don't want them to be the only option. And so with that in mind, we're looking at putting a cap on that scaling. You can scale them up to 200% bonus damage, which is still a lot. You're still doing, like triple damage, but we just want to make sure it doesn't get completely out of control with all the new stats and some of the scaling coming in from some of the seasonal powers that could potentially lead those to be, crowding out other options of gameplay. Additionally, we're looking at crowd control. This is something I talked about on our last Campfire chat, about how we're really looking at the moment-to-moment combat of our game. Like what are you doing like 1 second to the next? And one thing that came up a lot was sometimes enemies just randomly get crowd controlled. They randomly are frozen or stunned, and a lot of this comes from some of the what we call incidental crowd control, as in lucky hit crowd control effects, or anything that involves not like, oh, I pressed a button, now they're stunned, right? And we noticed like, hey, we got a lot of these effects across the game in many different places. And so we looked at really toning those down, specifically in the generic spaces. I know Fist of Fate is one of a very popular unique item right now for many reasons. One of them was that kind of free crowd control, but that's something that we think wasn't really promoting the best moment-to-moment combat and most engaging flow. So that particular affix has been changed to Lucky Hit Apply Vulnerable, but a lot of the other identity of Fist of Fate is still there as well. So it still has wide ranges on things. It still does random damage and a lot of lucky hit chance as well.
Yeah, and this change really puts the value of Frost Nova and Ground Stomp. Mm-hmm. It sort of makes those more valuable and satisfying.
Right. Yeah. So if you really want to get those kind of crowd control effects, it's going to be a build choice. You're going to have to consciously do it, and you're going to like know when it's happening. It's not just, oh, they randomly got stunned, and if they didn't get stunned, maybe you got hit, and that never felt good when it was just kind of purely random.
Yeah.
Additionally, this is something that the keen-eyed among you might have spied when we were looking at some earlier stuff. We've done a bit of a naming pass on some of the damage over time effects. This is no functional change. This is just a naming thing, where we have things like physical damage, and when it's physical damage over time, we call it bleeding. And when it's poison, we call it poisoning, for instance. We didn't previously have names for shadow, lightning, or cold damage over time. We would just call it like from shadow damage over time affected enemies, which was an absolute mouthful. So we've got new common terms. Shadow damage over time will be called corrupting damage. lightning damage over time is shocking damage, and cold damage over time, which we saw with the Wandering Death chest beam, is called frostbite damage. So that's just a terminology thing. It still relates to those base damage types, same as always. It's just a terminology update.
Cleans up the tooltips.
Absolutely, yeah. Nice. All right, so let's get on to some of the actual class updates, starting, we'll just go alphabetically with the Barbarian. All right, so our focus on Barbarian this season is about primarily about Barbarian's core fantasy of being physical and hitting enemies with a big weapon, right? In the past couple seasons, a lot of around Barbarian have focused around things like earthquakes or dust devils, which are really cool and fun. But I think we got some feedback that, hey, I don't really feel like I'm hitting enemies with my big weapon. I'm just making a tornado that hits them, which is not maybe fulfilling the fantasy that you want out of a Barbarian.
Your core skill isn't the cool thing; it's the thing that the core skill spawns.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and that's it's cool that those exist, but we want to make sure we're also catering to that heavy hitter kind of fantasy, and so a lot of the updates this season are focused around that. Specifically, updates to Double Swing core skill and the Twin Strikes unique to make that a bit more impactful to actually be hitting. Whirlwind as well. That's getting a buff and a rework with Gore's, its unique Gore's Devastating Grips. And then the new unique and legendary this season really talk to Mighty Throw in particular and make that just like the biggest hitting thing. Let's take a look at those uniques the unique and legendary here. So we've got the Bane of Aja Den. This is a unique glove item. And it says that every 12 seconds, your next Mighty Throw is going to detonate all of its pulses instantly. Normally Mighty Throw like pulses over time. It's going to do them all at once and deal massively increased damage. And that's going to pair up very well with the new legendary aspect of Delayed Extinction, which causes both Mighty Throw and Steel Grasp to gain multiplicative bonus damage rather than cooldown from cooldown reduction. So if you've got cooldown reduction on your gear or on the Bane of Ajaden, for instance, that's not going to actually reduce the cooldown. It's going to be a multiplicative scalar for these skills. And so that now you've got a new problem to solve, right? You can't cast these skills quite as often, but when you do, they're going to hit super hard. And so we've got a video clip of it just deleting a screen. So you walk up to it, and they're all gone. One hit, that's all it takes, because you got all these multipliers on your one big hit. But of course, because it doesn't benefit from cooldown reduction, that cooldown is going to be pretty much locked at that 12-second mark. And so you're going to have to find some other way to kind of fill the gap in there, and you've got a new challenge for your build to overcome.
I'm hoping to see Belial get decked by this.
I think it is possible that you're gonna melt some bosses with some really big hits.
It's a great finishing move.
Oh yeah. All right, let's take a look at the Druid. So for the Druid, I want to talk a little bit about one of the meta builds right now revolves around Cataclysm and kind of snapshotting issues that come up with that. And so for those of you who don't know what snapshotting basically means is for Cataclysm, which is one of their ultimate skills that has a duration. So you press the button, it summons a storm around you that lasts for some amount of time. And if you get a lot of that cooldown reduction and you can cast Cataclysm a second time before the first one expires, currently on the live game, the second cast of Cataclysm will keep all of the bonuses and like bonus damage effects or guaranteed overpowers or whatever that was affecting the first one. And that was definitely not intended. That is not how we wanted that to work. We didn't want bonuses from one cast kind of instance to carry over to the next cast. Now this can only happen in situations where you get that lot of cooldown, but it was kind of promoting this gameplay where it's very feast or famine. If you successfully kind of snapshot all the buffs, this build is insanely powerful. And if you mess it up or you don't get the snapshot quite right, you're actually really weak. And that led to unintuitive gameplay and this really big divide between the best and the optimal and like kind of the average normal case scenario. So we're addressing that where we don't really want to promote that between two different cast snapshotting.
Yeah, we don't like snapshotting in general.
Right, yeah, the kind of snapshotting where you are persisting things between different cast instances or equipping gear and then unequipping it to maintain a bonus. Those are snapshotting things that we don't think it promotes healthy gameplay. It's unintuitive in a lot of cases. You need to read a guide and follow an exact checklist to do it. That's not something that we think is good for the game. There are some cases where, with Cataclysm, giving the bonus to that whole that first time you cast it, you might say it's kind of snapshots for the duration of Cataclysm, but that's intended, where it says your next cast does something. That's what we want, but we don't want that to persist on to multiple casts or through basically infinitely.
Adam looks so bored.
So that's one thing that we're adjusting on Druid.
Bored.
But we're also looking at promoting other playstyles as well.
He is so bored.
That build is fun, but there's other ways to play Druid as well. Specifically with Stoneburst, that's the Earth core skill. It was kind of a channeled skill, which for a lot of our channeled skills, they are not allowed to overpower. But with Stoneburst particularly, we have reworked one of its legendary items to allow it to overpower when you detonate it at maximum size, which is really cool and opens up some new build possibilities for Stoneburst. And finally, I want to talk about the new unique Gathlin's Birthright. This is let's take a look at it on screen here. It's in a similar vein to Tempest Roar and Vasili's Prayer, where it is a unique helm that is very transformational, but rather than talking to werewolves or werebear build, it's talking to human form builds. If you don't want to embrace the wilds quite as much, you want to stay in your human form, Gathlin's Birthright is going to be the unique helm for you. It says, while you're in human form, critically striking enemies with your nature magic skills will grant you Anima of the Forest for 10 seconds. And when you whenever you gain Anima of the Forest, you are infused with bonus key passives, Perfect Storm and Earth and Might. So if you have this and you have another key passive, you can potentially have up to 3 key passives active at once, which is not something we've ever done before in Diablo 4.
Okay, that's actually
and I love
pretty
that
crazy.
It's on the helm, so if you really want to be a human druid, which historically, hasn't been as great as like werewolf, for example, this is the helm for you.
Yeah, this is exactly that. It's in a similar spot.
Nature's
as
Fury build with Perfect Storm and Earth and Might key passives. That sounds insane.
We want this to be the build-defining helm for human form druids. Additionally, Aspect of Impending Deluge that empowers your Storm Strike, which is probably pretty useful with this human form nature magic build, which will cause your Storm Strike to deal more and also increase damage that they take from your other skills for a time. I think we've got a picture of this, or a video of this in action, where you've got your druid. It's got you. You need 200 stacks of Anima of the Forest, which sounds like a lot, but it triggers on every hit. So in most combat situations, you actually stack it up pretty quick. And see, once you get this online, you're going to be empowered with Earth and Might, and with Perfect Storm, and with Nature's Fury. You have all of this power.
And the idea of three passives going at once is the key passives is crazy. Yeah.
And then boss power slapped on top of that too.
Oh yeah, it is a lot when you get this empowered state. All right, moving on to one of my favorite classes, the Necromancer. So Necromancer was probably the talk of the current season 7 with Bloodwave. I know we've mentioned it a few times on stream. Bloodwave, really good. We've talked about how we're going to look at ultimate scaling, so maybe it won't scale up with the bonus damage, at least not to the same level that it had before. We're going to put a cap on that. We also just think we generally overshot the mark on the unique item, the Kasemi's Legacy, which really, like, you get this item and suddenly you're God. It just had so much power in one spot. And we like a bit more of that progression that Colin was alluding to before about that 0 to hero journey. And when you have one item that is, you equip it and it's over, like you're as powerful as you ever need to be. That really shortcuts that journey and really makes it feel less satisfying than we want. So we're taking a look at reducing the power of that unique in particular, as well as some other adjustments to Bloodwave. We do want Bloodwave builds to still be powerful and still be an option if you like that playstyle. We just don't want it to be the S++ tier that it was in the past. Additionally, we're taking a look at Blood Lance. This is a core skill that has historically been very good in multi-target, kind of clearing out pit runs or dungeon situations. But then you run up into a boss, which, hey, we're fighting a lot of bosses this season.
Yeah, we'll be.
And it suddenly falls really flat because its core mechanic is about like arcing damage between enemies. And if there's only one enemy, what are you doing here, right? So with this update to Bloodlance, it's going to still maintain some of that fantasy where it arcs the damage between enemies, but if you're hitting a target who's already lanced, it's going to do a massive amount more damage. So it's much better in single target situations and much more viable for bossing. And finally, the new legendary and unique for this season talks to minions. So let's take a look at Sanguivar Blade of Zir, the unique two-handed sword. So this weapon will empower your summons, so your minions and your Army of the Dead, to affect enemies with Vampiric Curse. Now, for those of you who played back in Season 2, Vampiric Curse was a mechanic that we introduced in the Season of Blood, where you affect enemies with it, and as you kill them, you kind of collect their soul. And then you can unleash these souls. They kind of run out from you and explode, and it's a really satisfying moment. And we put that on a handful of legendary aspects, but now all of your summons will affect enemies with Vampiric Curse. And you can unleash them with Army of the Dead. And when you do that, the souls from Vampiric Curse and Army of the Dead itself will deal massively increased damage, scaling with how many souls you've collected.
It's huge. I love Minion Necro. It's like my favorite one.
Oh yeah. This is really cool for Army of the Dead and Minion Necro to just really be that impactful moment of summoning an army of skeletons to just eviscerate the enemies. And additionally, aspect of service and sacrifice. I love playing with this one. This one feels so good to play. Your skeleton warriors explode on death, dealing a massive chunk of physical damage to surrounding enemies. And to help make sure they die, they lose 25% life per second while in combat. So you're going to be needing to resummon them quite often, but when you do, hey, it's good because they're going to be detonating for this massive chunk at the end. And additionally, while you're resummoning all your warriors, your mages are going to be super tanky. They're going to take 90% less damage and deal massively increased damage. So you're going to have your mages up pretty much all the time, and you're going to be focusing on resummoning the warriors to run in there and explode and do their damage that way.
That's awesome. It's a really clever way to make it feel like you're constantly summoning, and you have your backline of mages just obliterating.
Yeah, it's great. Let's take a look at Sanguivar Blade of Zir in action here. Oh no, sorry, this is actually service and sacrifice. So you've got your skeleton warriors, the skirmishers, they run up there. And then here's Blade of Zir, right? You get all those like skeleton warriors running out when you activate Army of the Dead. Not you just get the normal ones that are running around, but then they all you unleash a stream of them straight from you with the Sanguivar. Really impactful ultimate skill there.
Yeah, Army of the Dead is just so underutilized, so I'm so happy to see it come back into the fold.
It's great. All right, next up, we've got the one we've been teasing for a bit. Thank you, Ruben. The Rogue. Let's take a look at the idea with Rogue. So, as you probably guessed, the theme of Rogue this season is looking at trap builds, right, with both Death Trap and Poison Trap, in a way. Historically, Poison Trap has been kind of underrepresented. Death Trap builds have been quite popular, pretty powerful, and a lot of fun to play. Poison Trap kind of fell by the wayside a little bit. It had a number of issues that we're looking to address this season to really promote Poison Trap as a viable standalone build. And what we were seeing from Ruben was the Scoundrel's Leather rework. Now this is a unique chest item that's been in the game for a while. It was about traps in the past. We've done a rework this season where when you cast a trap, or rather every 10 seconds when you cast the trap, you're going to get a bonus Death Trap. So you could cast Poison Trap or Caltrops, or Death Trap itself, and then you get a second Death Trap. And when you actually cast the Death Trap active button, you're going to kind of jump or teleport to that position, so you can just instantly get into the fray there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so rogues are all about mobility and jumping around the battlefield and doing that kind of thing. This is just another tool in their arsenal to really jump in, put the Death Trap down, which groups up some enemies, and then they're ready for you to slaughter there. But let's take a look at the new items that talk to Poison Trap specifically. The Bands of Icarus Rose, these are unique gloves that says your Poison Trap, which normally has a 9-second duration, it's always going to do its full damage over 3 seconds instead. So it's much shorter duration, but higher DPS. And it's always going to benefit from all of its upgrades. You know, that enhancement and those modifications, you just get all of them. You don't need to put skill points in. And normally the two choices are mutually exclusive. You get both with these. And they're going to be even more powerful. Additionally, Poison Trap will now also benefit from your combo points if you're using those. It's going to have no cooldown during the Inner Sight if you're using Inner Sight. And if you're using Preparation, its cooldown is going to be reduced by the Preparation trigger. So previously, Poison Trap didn't really interact with any of these three mechanics very well. and now it benefits from whichever one you want.
That's so cool. So it really makes it more like a core skill, something I can work into my rotation.
Oh yeah. You're going to be wanting to use this very often with this unique. And then the aspect of contamination, as many builds that focus around poison on Rogue often want to build critical strike damage, because that's really good with the poison imbuement. Poison Trap now also can scale up with some critical strike chance. So with aspect of contamination, it unleashes a poison burst when it detonates, like kind of initial upfront hit. And then if that burst critically strikes, which, if you build in a lot of crit chance, it probably will, or if you hit a lot of enemies, then you're going to deal increased poison damage for a duration, which will, of course, increase the rest of the duration of the poison trap. And this is probably my favorite clip here. Let's get a clip of this one. Right, so you apply Poison Trap, which it's going to throw 2 of them out, and one of its upgrades knocks down enemies, and because it's increased, it knocks them down for quite a while, and so they just take a little nap in your Poison Traps. I don't recommend it, but hey, if they do, they take a ton of poison damage.
I love the knockdown animation of this guy enemy.
Yeah,
so good.
This guy just falls right
sit
down.
Lay down, I guess.
His face is in it.
His face plants and then succumbs to the poison. It's awesome. All right, moving on, we've got our Sorceress. So the Sorceress class definitely is one of the ones currently on Season 7 that I think didn't have any of these real big outlier builds that we'd kind of talked about. Some of the highest highs come from like the Blood Necro or the Druid with the snapshotting Cataclysm. And I think I would definitely want to acknowledge that Sorceress maybe didn't have some of those real outliers this season, and they felt like they were a bit behind of those. So as we talked about with other classes, we're definitely looking at bringing those outlier builds down a notch to bring them kind of back to the norm of some of the other builds, so they're not so far ahead. But for Sorceress, we're looking at improving some of the quality of life and some of the interactions between some of their mechanics, like crackling energy, meteors and meteorites, and making sure they scale well with the build. Like crackling energy will now have the shock skill tag, so if you're building up damage for shock skills or some of the other synergies there, those now interact with your crackling energy. And additionally, with meteor and meteorites, they're now going to be able to scale with each other's damage, which helps builds just be a bit more cohesive and feel more robustly supported. That being said, I think where Sorceress has been in Season 7 is in terms of like its power progression and the relative strength of its builds amongst each other is more of the closer to the ideal state of where we envision all classes ending up. We recognize that they are kind of a bit lower than other classes in Season 7, but we're looking at bringing them up a little bit with improved quality of life and build options, and making sure that some of the outlier builds that's really skewing that perception are being brought to be to
bring them close together.
Yeah.
And create some more harmony between the classes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is something that we're actively looking at again to the point of early in the season. If things aren't really performing to the level of our expectation and it doesn't feel good, then those are things that we're going to buff. And Sorceress is a great example of like what we're going to be really.
He needs a
looking
nerf
at.
shirt.
Yeah, and we want to do that in ways that we don't just want to slap on a 50x scaler on Sorceress. We want to make sure that the builds feel cohesive and coherent in a way that makes a lot of sense. And so that's what all the bulk of our focus is for Sorc this season.
Sorceress is in a bad place
I want to talk a little
overall.
bit about ice shards. That's what the new unique is going to be working with here. Let's take a look at the unique, the Hail of Verglass. This is a unique helm that's going to empower your ice shards to spread out rather than shoot in kind of a straight line, that kind of rapid fire. It's now going to be a spread pattern. You can hit more enemies with it. And you get bonus shards, and you're going to be dealing increased damage for every time an ice shards damages an enemy, and it's going to stack up. So it takes a lot of stacks. You need to be spamming ice shards. You need to be hitting a lot, but once you do, it unleashes a lot of bonus damage. And it also just makes the skill, in my opinion, a lot more usable. Right? I like the spread pattern a whole lot. Lets you hit wider screen, and you can kind of like shotgun enemies if you get nice and close to them.
That's cool.
And Shivering Aspect, a new legendary aspect here. Enemies are going to take increased damage based on how much they're chilled or staggering. Now, historically, some of the Frost Sorcs or some of the other builds that were heavy on those crowd control effects, sometimes they really struggled into bosses, which, hey, bosses are the theme of the season.
It's very appropriate.
So we're making sure that some of these new effects that scale based on the crowd control effects also work against bosses. So this will kind of take how much stagger you've built up on the boss and also give you a bonus damage based on that. So we're really being cognizant of, hey, let's make sure this works in the situations you want it to, and it's not night.
That's got to be the worst idea I've ever seen for a unique. The Sorceress has absolutely no problem with AoE damage and has never had any problem with AoE damage. They basically just took a skill that never had good single target damage and gave it more AoE damage. It's so stupid.
Right, so they fire out pretty quick, they fire out in a nice spread, and you can clear through whole packs of skeletons with a single cast here.
Multi-shot.
Oh yeah,
Multi-shot with ice shards.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it looks cool, but that's not what the Sorceress needs. She doesn't need more AoE.
Class here,
She needs more single target.
So the Spiritborn,
She's always needed more single target. She's never had an issue with AoE.
I mean, similar to Sorceress, where it didn't have those crazy overpowered builds, but we think it's in a relatively healthy spot, and we're just looking at empowering new build options and making tighter synergies between the builds and giving you some new tools to play with. With that in mind, we took a look at Rushing Claw. It's one of my favorite skills on the Spiritborn, but never really found its way into any of the most popular builds in the past couple seasons since Spiritborn was released. And we've updated the two upgrade choice.
What the hell are they talking
about? Kind of transformative. It's kind of a, if you pick...
What the hell is he talking about? Rushing Claw was literally one of the initial builds that literally cleared Pit 150 in the early parts of the game. It's like one of the most powerful frickin' skills in the game, bar none. The hell is he even talking about?
Where it gains even more charges. It gains 12 charges. But using it consumes all the charges. So really it has just one. But for every charge that it consumes, it deals massively increased damage, and it hits a wider area. So now gaining cooldown reduction or gaining more charges actually just increases your damage output. And it promotes a very different play style for this. So you get kind of an option. You can choose the original version, which is still very powerful and very cool. Or you can choose the new upgrade and kind of spend all your charges at once, do a big kind of damage cooldown, and then work on building up those charges again to deal even more. Additionally, we've looked at Storm Feathers and specifically how they interact with the new unique item, the Sunbird's Gorget, which I think we've got a picture of right here. So the Sunbird's Gorget is a new unique amulet. This really works to synergize with the Eagle and Jaguar builds. So it says picking up a Storm Feather, which you can create in many different ways, will form a firestorm around you for 8 seconds that deals fire damage. And every additional Storm Feather that you pick up is going to intensify this firestorm. It's going to make it grow in size up to a maximum, and then it's going to increase its damage output. For as many Storm Feathers as you can spawn, this firestorm is going to get more intense. But it only lasts for 8 seconds, so intensifying it or picking up more Storm Feathers, it's not going to extend the duration. So it's kind of locked to that 8-second duration, and then it'll reset. So you really want to collect as many Storm Feathers as possible in 8 seconds, and then it restarts. And also this Firestorm is considered an Eagle, Jaguar, and Storm Feather skill. So you got lots of options for how you want to increase this damage through your other talent choices or your itemization. You got lots of options for how to work this into a build in either Eagle or Jaguar or both. And following up on the theme with Rushing Claw, we've got the new Rip and Tear aspect, where Rushing Claw is going to deal increased damage and is empowered based on how many charges you had when you cast it. So if you're taking the upgrade that gives you 12 charges, it's probably always going to be with 4+, and so it's going to strike an additional time. But if you're choosing the option where you spend each charge as you go, it's going to go through a bit of a cycle here. You're going to get an additional strike, then it's going to get a guaranteed crit, then it's going to get a guaranteed overpower, and when you just have 1 charge left, it's going to give you a nice chunky heal to help keep you in the fight.
Nice. There's a ton of versatility in there.
Yeah, lots of different ways to play, and it works great with either way that Rushing Claw now works. All right, let's take a look at the Sunbird's Gorget in action here, right? So you're moving along, you're picking up tons of these feathers, and the firestorm around you just grows in intensity. You got lots of different ways to scale it up, and it provides a nice kind of passive AoE around you as you're picking them up.
Hey, it's a hurricane
druid.
druid.
Make sure you're kind of thinking about exactly how your character is moving to make sure you're picking up as many of these storm feathers as possible to maximize your damage output.
You don't need to pick them up at all. There's an ability that literally sucks them to you.
We did get through all of them. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing all the new builds that these empower, how they modify old existing builds, and all the interesting combinations that I'm sure all of you will test out on the PTR and find out the most absolutely broken thing and let me know about it.
Yes, please let us know if you find something absolutely broken, which I'm sure you will. So thank you again, Charles.
Keep it a secret,
for walking us through all the different class changes. Again, this is we do plan on having patch notes along with the blog related to everything tied to PTR. So there's other changes that we didn't actually cover off in here. That will be on the Diablo4.com immediately after the stream, so everyone can actually check it out, inspect it, do their theory crafting and everything related to that. Of course, with PTR, we kind of want to know when PTR actually begins. PTR is starting next Tuesday, and this is, of course, PTR on PC Battle.net, so players will be able to jump in starting on the 11th, and it'll run for a week there. I will note that players actually will be able to also pre-download the PTR the day prior, so around Monday afternoon here in California. I translate that using some sort of time tool. That will be when players will be able to pre-download, so it'll be about a day beforehand. One thing to note is, of course, the boost vendor, Marak, will be available, which will be dancing in town for everyone. But one thing we did want to note is that the boosts themselves will be available probably 2 days after the PTR actually begins. The reason behind this is actually a little bit tied to how Season 7 performed. One thing we allowed players to do was immediately boost the second they got into PTR, and we really didn't get that whole entire flow as we were kind of going through.
The headhunt and things like that. So we also just want to hear your feedback on the leveling process, right? This is why we run the PTR. We really want to hear your thoughts on how the sort of more uniform leveling feels, how the legendary drop rates feel. So that is really valuable to us for launching a really awesome Season 8 Return of Belial.
Yeah, and so after a couple days, Marak will be more than happy to take your Paragon levels to insane numbers. So PTR boosts will be available just a couple days after that. One other thing I do want to note is we will, of course, have our forums available and online for PTR. That is the best place to actually provide feedback. Of course, we do look in other places such as Reddit, Discord, etc. But I will say, like, the forums is kind of, we turn them on specifically, like a PTR section. So please put feedback in there, because we are constantly checking in there for any notes, feedback from players on that end. One other note is within the PTR, you guys may see a term called the reliquary that may just kind of pop up here and there, and we haven't talked about the reliquary, nor will the blog later today actually be talking about the reliquary. I will say that you guys will hear more about the reliquary before the start of Season 8 in itself, but for right now, ignore it. I don't know. Turn a blind eye. I don't know. But it is a rework of our Battle Pass system that we're doing. We're trying to. We've heard a lot of comments from players related to the Battle Pass. We're trying to make it a little bit more customizable for people, especially for rewards that they're looking for. So we'll have a detailed breakdown of what the reliquary is before Season 8. So looking forward to kind of sharing that before we actually kick off this season. And I know I have a lot. I'm trying to get through all my stuff. I know. It's like I'm hungry. The last thing we did want to talk about is I've gotten asked a million times about this, and I've even seen it in chat, and it's related to a roadmap for Diablo 4. And I will say that we are actively working on a roadmap that we can share with you all, which is great because it gives you and everyone a opportunity to kind of see more of like the future vision of what's coming for Diablo 4. We do plan on actually having this roadmap out before Season 8. So we're really excited to share it. So as soon as we actually do have that available, we of course you'll hear it everywhere. We will be on every single microphone and megaphone out there showcasing what the roadmap is. And you've probably seen roadmap. If you're curious, like what does a roadmap entail? You've probably seen some of our fellow teams here at Blizzard, such as like Diablo Immortal or like World of Warcraft. They've actually posted these more public-facing roadmaps, and that's something that we want to do here, so that you guys have that ability of being able to see what's coming out for Diablo 4 and more exciting news related to it. So I know we have Q&A. We want to jump into Q&A here really quickly. So if you guys do have any questions or anything, of course, we have our chat available on the Twitch link for Diablo. So feel free to jump in and ask any questions. I know we always queue it up with one question specifically. And do we have a question slide here? There we go. How does party play work with Lair bosses? We kind of covered this a little bit, but I don't know if you guys want to go into specifically more details on this.
Yeah, I can jump into that. So when you are fighting the Lair bosses in a party and the horde spawns, when you open the horde, we essentially do a bonus chance for an extra drop based on the amount of party play. So if you're in a party of 4 and you open up that horde, it's going to guarantee an extra unique item. So it scales with the amount of parties or party members you have, and it's always a good time, when you get together with people.
Awesome. I'm like, I'm so unprepared. All right, let me look through the questions here as people are dropping in questions. I have a team of people dropping in questions too. If you're ever wanting to know how we do this, we just have a Google Doc and we're copying and pasting questions from chat into there. So
very high tech.
Very high tech, like super high tech. Let's see, this is from Skulm TV. Any plans to place a blacksmith or vendor near the boss rooms to help people quickly salvage / clear inventory without having to go into town?
I think this is something that we can definitely take away and consider, especially with the revamp flow. That's definitely something that's interesting. One thing that the revamp flow does, I will touch on, is the amount of chain bossing really requires you to have a lot more materials. If anything, sort of some philosophy here is that we've heard a lot of feedback that it feels mandatory to play some of these bosses in a party just because chain bossing is so lucrative. And we do expect some amount of the chain bossing to come down a little bit because a lot more of the resources are being consumed when opening those chests. So it's not a direct answer to your question. I think it's an interesting idea, but I do think the amount of chain bossing and required trips and flow breaks to go back to town from some of this bossing is going to come down a little bit, especially if you've been playing a ton of partying.
Awesome. Question from Fan27, Q&A, or sorry, he wrote Diablo Q&A and I just read that out loud. Any chance we will have to redo strongholds and waypoints on every character every single season?
I can answer that one too. Yeah, this is something I definitely experience. It's always a big pain in the ass where it's like, oh, there's some cool bounty or apparition incursion, but I have to go get the waypoint. It's something the team has been talking about. There's no concrete plans today, which I know is disappointing, but it's something we know is a problem and something we 100% want to tackle in the near future.
Awesome. Jokums says, and this is actually a question that we were talking about that might actually come up, but would you consider adding the frog from Witch Powers in Season 7 as a permanent companion skill for druids? And at the moment I can say we're not for that specifically, but it is a thing that I think we didn't really clarify in regards to what from Season 7 is kind of for sure staying over. I will say the Witch Powers are most definitely something that aren't carrying over completely over to the future seasons. But one thing in regards to at least the Tree of Whispers is that we have a bunch of new NPCs there. We redid the layout there. Yep. That is made that as a hub that doesn't feel like I'm just going for the tree and I have to immediately leave. It's made it as a all-encompassing place that you can most definitely tap into from that end.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I can speak a bit to the seasonal powers. As we said, a lot of those witchcraft powers are specific to Season 7. That is true. They are not necessarily coming back in Season 8. But we do hear that feedback, right? I think they got a really positive reception. Yep. A lot of the poison frog, one of my favorites, the fire bats, and all kinds of the other things that are very visually flashy and just a lot of fun to play with. We hear that, and that definitely helps us to inform making future content. In the past, we've done that where we've taken some favorite seasonal mechanics, put them on items to return. I can't speak to any particular plans, but just know that we do hear this feedback, and it'll definitely help us to help craft content in the future.
We got a lot of questions related to PTR because I know, as I mentioned, this is a PC BattleNet PTR, and there's a few people Kim from Canada. And I can't read this because the text color is so just jarring. But we've gotten a lot of questions related to PTR being on PC Battle.net and asking like, hey, is there any plans on bringing it to console, maybe Steam? I will say the reason why PC Battle.net works best for us is that Battle.net is a platform that is housed here at Blizzard, and is the processes of getting builds up there, making like any type of change, especially for PTR where we're in a smaller window and we may need to change something really quickly. Just it gives us more flexibility and allows us to be able to change those things really, really smoothly. I know with other platforms and everything, there's more processes involved for good reason, because they have more checks and balances and everything. So it makes it a little bit more difficult on our end to do some of those fast iterations that we may need with PTR. So in the foreseeable future right now, we see PC Battle.net as being kind of the home for PTRs when we do end up testing anything. Question from, my computer's telling me to update. It's been telling me for weeks. Don't hate me, IT. Chris Mate says, will the Lair bosses have resilience/damage reduction that the world bosses have to ensure that they just don't get one shot too fast with some classes or builds I can't talk today.
Trivializing. Yeah. No,
I can't even talk.
I think this is a great question. It's something we actually talk about on the team a bunch. And, from our perspective, adding something like resilience would sort of devalue that power progression. Like, we feel like it sort of disservices that sort of 0 to hero. Once Belial was really hard, but now I've gotten so strong I can just crush him. That said, we do think that the level of one-shotting bosses that has been happening is a little bit too much. There isn't enough of a journey to get to a point where I can just stomp on Varshan or I can stomp on the Penitent Knight. So what we have done is, like Derek mentioned earlier in the stream, we've massively buffed a lot of these bosses. Like, so much so that we're kind of like, try it on the PTR and see. But a lot of these bosses should present more of a journey to getting to a place where you can really stomp on them throughout the torment tiers. Even Uber Lilith herself has been, or I don't remember what we actually call her.
Echo of Lilith.
We just keep calling her Uber Lilith internally. Now it's just stuck. Yeah.
Has seen quite a buff. And that should mean that journey to getting to a place where you're really farming some of these bosses is a lot more fulfilling, but it's longer also. You're not just like walking into Torment 1 and one-shotting Varshan.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into what I talked about with some of the outlier builds that were just like Bloodwave Necro, prime example of being something where you get one item and then suddenly you can one-shot everything. It's really not, it doesn't promote the best gameplay. Like it's just, like, it's fun for a little bit to go in and one-shot everything, but that's something we think it's much more engaging to have a little bit of back and forth, and you're not just going in and stomping them, but you do feel powerful, feel some power progression, and as you get more powerful and more gear and more Paragon levels, you do get more powerful and it becomes easier to overcome these challenges, and then you start feeling that real powerful stuff as you really complete your build.
Yeah, and I'll also say, like, I think part of how we originally set up the boss ladder, it really did encourage the one-shotting behavior, right? Like, if you have to pay materials to fight this boss, why would you ever fight the boss when it's actually a challenge, right? You would only fight it when it's really difficult. But the changes that we've made have really sort of, in a fun way, I'm hoping this plays out, that you can sort of maybe get a cheeky run in on Varshan when maybe he's really hard, but you get a really powerful, unique, because you don't have to risk anything anymore when to actually summon him.
Yeah, I think it also kind of speaks to just the approach of injecting challenge across the Lair bosses. Like we discussed, we could just do straight stat boosts, and that would definitely resolve it. But within season 8,
your guy's nose is so shiny, I can't stop looking at it. Like it's like a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
To Lair bosses across the board to
I gotta close my eyes.
Introduce that hiked challenge, but in an interesting way that's just more fun, I guess, really for us to enjoy.
We have a question related to. I'm gonna speed through a few last questions here. Lilith, will Lilith ever make a entry into maybe the boss layer system or anything? This is from Ganon North.
Yeah, I think that's something that we've been thinking about, and like what's the right place and what's the right time for something like that. She's in an interesting spot now where she's kind of like the pinnacle of the season's journey a lot of times, and that's something we can definitely think about, especially with this revamped flow of being able to summon the bosses. So we can definitely take that into consideration. That'd be a lot of fun.
Quick question related to the Spiritborn. This is from the Schwab. Does the new Russian Claw aspect power give you all the previous bonuses at 4+ charges, or just the extra cast?
It's just the extra one. So so if you're casting it at 4 or more charges, it only hits an extra time. It does not get guaranteed crit or overpower or heal you. It's you kind of either progress through one benefit at a time, or you just get the 4+ if you're using the new upgrade.
I'm going to do 2 quick last questions. I will end on the one that everyone's asking. I see it in chat. Don't worry. In regards to, I lost it. There it is. From Mid Central Vowel, at what point will you start maybe potentially removing uniques that have proven to be not that useful? Or do you guys feel like uniques are feeling bloated in the current setup?
I think I actually feel like we don't necessarily have enough uniques in terms of speaking to every skill. Like, I think that's something that you see with the poison trap and you see with ice shards. That is sort of why we have the boss ladder, to give you more deterministic, or maybe not deterministic, but targeted ways to find some of the uniques you're looking for. This lets us have a lot of different uniques, but things that you actually have to target. The other thing I'll just say too is, like, part of the game is random items and figuring out how to assemble a build out of the random items. So, like, we don't want to get to a place where I just sort of log into Diablo and I get all the uniques I want, and then I'm sort of done with the game, and it's just sort of this linear deterministic track through getting the pieces that you want. But that said, like, we're always sort of listening to the feedback, and if it does start to feel like where I'm just constantly sifting through things I don't care about, those are things that we can absolutely take a look at.
Yeah, and I think on the design side, when we're looking at unique designs, I think there are still some spots in the game, like with Poison Trap this season, where there were some skills or some play styles that had had some threads there, but it wasn't really a complete and cohesive build, and still require a bit more support. So we're still going to be looking for those opportunities to support builds or play styles that we think are interesting and fun with new uniques every season. But additionally, we are also taking a look at kind of the catalog of uniques we have in the game. So a good example on Rogue, again, is the Scoundrel's Leather this season. That was an item that was sometimes played, but not often for its actual unique effect. For some of its affixes, actually, it was pretty powerful. But its unique effect was pretty lackluster, and so we've done just a whole rework on it. We said, hey, what's the identity of this? Well, it's talking to Death Trap builds in a way, but in a way that wasn't super compelling. And so we said, well, let's kind of scrap that existing effect, and how can we better support that? Let's take another try at this. So that's one way that we're going to look at, to find those underused uniques that really maybe don't find a home. We're going to constantly be reevaluating them and seeing how we can kind of plus them up and make them achieve the potential and fulfill that build niche that they were intended to do in the first place.
All right, I'm going to end it with the last question, because everyone's asking this related to aspirational content. Are there more plans for that? Things like whether it's potential leaderboards to more like end-game type of features and stuff. Where are we in regards to some of that?
Yeah, I'll say the team absolutely, this is top of mind and something that we absolutely want to improve in terms of adding more milestones for you to reach, more satisfying and more rewarding milestones, and celebrating those milestones. So the team is actively sort of looking at what are ways that we can level up some of the aspirational feel of the game. I'll also say, just in Season 8, again, a lot of the torment tiers and bosses have really been leveled up. And I'll say, again, the pit has been pretty massively buffed. So there are some tuning changes we've made just to make the game, the pieces that we have today, a little bit more aspirational and challenging and satisfying to overcome. We really think Season 7 was a fun candy rush, and it was a sugar rush, sort of like the smoothies everyone's binge drinking behind the scenes.
Not everyone.
Not everyone,
Okay,
yeah. Only the important people behind the
scenes.
scenes.
That it got
Drinking
delivered
the
midstream.
smoothies.
Okay,
wow.
Yeah, Marcus redeemed.
Yeah, but Season 7 was really fast, and we do think when the game reaches that state of where just nothing really, you have to work for it, and it's just really fast, and it's over in a weekend, totally, there's not enough things to work towards. So we are sort of taking an approach, again, with some of the balance changes to make some of the game feel a little bit more aspirational, and it's a focus for our team going forward.
Yeah, I will say, we've had conversations about this, I feel like, almost weekly. Colin and I talk about it a whole lot. I know there's a lot of discussions happening, and a lot of people thinking about that specifically from that end. So, huge shout out And thanks to you guys for jumping in, and to Ruben, of course, for jumping into the build and running through everything. Again, PTR is going to be starting next Tuesday. You can early download on PC Battle.net starting Monday afternoon, California time. And we will have a blog and patch notes and everything available for people to check out immediately after this stream. Really looking forward to everyone jumping in, testing out the new boss layer system, of course, the new powers that are associated with it, all the class changes, and all the quality of life stuff that we talked about with in terms of like the leveling journey as you're going up within this new season. So really looking forward to everyone jumping in. Please make sure to take advantage of giving us your feedback on the forums or Reddit or Discord, other places. We're going to be most definitely checking it out starting all next week. So thank you guys again. We have March of the Goblins, which is currently going on in Diablo 4, and we have a D2R ladder reset tonight. So
oh my
if you're a
God!
big D2R
They actually
person,
mentioned us.
Feel free to jump in. It's always a fun time. We will see you guys in the PTR next week, and really appreciate it. Thanks all.
They talked about us. They talked about us, guys. They talked about us. They said something about D2 players. All right, so we're waiting for the patch notes is what we're doing now. Patch notes. There's Mookie, the moo cow cat. There you go. Enjoy a moo cow cat while we wait for the patch notes. My little patch notes. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. My lovely little patch notes. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. I love you. Doo-doo-doo. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Patch notes. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Lovely little patch notes. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Lovely little patch notes. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Patch notes. Doo-doo-doo. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Patch notes. Oh my God, I could not stop staring at Shiny Nose. Like I had to like close my eyes and look away. Like his nose was so shiny. I ain't never seen somebody's nose so shiny before. I thought I was looking at like a light bulb or something. Dude, my eyes it's so stupid. It's artificial, but like my eyeballs were just attracted to it. Like it was like it was a moth and it was a candle. What's up, Balthazar? It's good D2R got some love because D4 has none. Oh, Balthazar. I appreciate that, dono. My girlfriend's got some goulash down there. I'm so tempted to just, like, abandon these patch notes and just go get some goulash. You guys don't know. Goulash is delicious. My girlfriend's goulash specifically is, like, God tier. It's definitely God tier, so like I don't. If they don't post these patch notes soon, I'm going down to get some goulash, and I'm gonna leave these patch notes for another day. I want some goulash, do. A wonderful goulash, do. I need some goulash, do. I love you, do. Do the goulash, do. Hey, there it is. Okay. You're lucky. I was about to give up and go get some goulash. Ahead of his return, Belial's putrid hatred of brand deception flows freely through Sanctuary, tainting the mind and body of its worried populace. As Belial blurs the lines between reality and fiction, his influence grows. Will deceiving all of Sanctuary sate the Lord of Lies' seemingly bottomless appetites for power? The 2.20 public test round for PTR will start on March 11th. Through the 18th, offering you a chance to test upcoming changes. Blah, 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 blah. Deliver retribution with boss powers. I talked about these quite extensively during the campfire. So there's going to be 24 bosses across Sanctuary that we're going to be able to take powers from. And there's going to be like a special event that we can go to fight extra bosses at. In fact, this is like the whole season is basically based around bosses and boss powers. So there's the Wandering Death Chest Beam. each one of them seems to have 2 different powers according to the way that they explained it. So there's like the main ability, and then there's like the modifier. So you can basically choose any of the boss powers, use them as a main, and then you can use other boss powers to like augment the main ability. So there's the Wandering Death's Chest Beam, there's Ashava's Poison Breath, Avarice's Explosion Ore, there's Alex Talon's Beastmaster's Training, Blackmailer Sabotage. There's a bunch of different abilities. So like this one is a frost damage, like damage over time, a channeling skill. It also comes with execute and primary resource if you use it as its secondary. Ashava's Poison, obviously that one's probably going to be a huge amount of poisoning damage. It also applies 10% more poisoning for each 1% of the target's current life affected by DOT. A modifier is once per activation, damaging enemy with your main boss power will also apply 45% poisoning damage over 3 seconds. Avarice's Explosion Ore, that's the one where he like covers you in gold. When you gain excess primary resource, spawn a piece of ore. After 2.5 seconds, the piece of ore explodes, dealing 700% fire damage. You can spawn up to 3 pieces of ore at once. Modifier, activating your main boss power spends all your primary resource to increase its damage by 1.5% times per resource point spent. Okay. Alex Talons. I need 1 billion more viewer, man. I know, I need to go nourish myself in preparation for ladder tonight. Alex Talons, casting a basic skill, 200% sparking damage over 4 seconds to enemies' hits. Modifier, gain 5% movement speed, increased by 0.5% for each 1% cooldown reduction you have, up to 11%. Beastmaster's Training, obtained after defeating this apparition in the Apparition incursion events. Whenever you cast a summon skill or call a mercenary for reinforcement, one of your summons or mercenaries taunts enemies and gains 40% damage reduction. Modifier, your summons deal 5% more damage and increase by 0.25% for each 1% bonus critical strike damage you have from items in Paragon, up to 17% times. Blackmailer's Sabotage, obtained after defeating this. So a lot of these are going to be the apparitions in the Apparition Incursion event. Casting a core skill while you have a barrier knocks down close enemies for 1.1 seconds. This cannot occur on the same enemy more than once every 5 seconds. Whenever you gain Fortify, additionally gain 20% as barrier. Flesh Reaper's Disruption. Damaging a vulnerable enemy removes the vulnerable and then stuns them and surrounding enemies for 0.5 seconds. The stun applies 100% more stagger to bosses. Anything that removes vulnerable, I did not like. I tested it out on some other things and I hated it. Gain 5% vulnerable damage increase by 0.25 for 1% crowd control duration bonus, so just more multipliers. Hatred's Embrace, casting Shadow or Fire skills grant 1.1% increased movement speed for 3 seconds, up to 11%. Gain critical strike chance and shadow resistance. Okay. Kerma Sparks, obtain when you evade, apply 200% sparking damage over 4 seconds to close enemies. So they said they changed like the way that the wording is. So sparking is literally just like lightning damage over time. Modifier, your evade cooldown is reduced by 5%, increased by 0.2% for each 1% lightning resistance bonus you have, up to a maximum of 11%. Outlaw's Sharpshooter Eye, attained after defeating the Apparition in the Apparition Incursion event. Dealing direct damage to a distant enemy slows them and surrounding enemies by 40% for 5 seconds. Modifier, you deal increased damage to enemies the further they are from you, up to 10.5% times. Cinerat's Flames, using mobility skills, burns close enemies for 200% burning damage over 4 seconds, or gain 5% times increased damage to all elements for each 1% elemental resistance from bonuses. Gain 0.2% increased damage for that element, up to a maximum of 15.5%. Skurg's Toxins. I don't know who Skurg is. When an enemy applies damage over time effect to you, apply 1,000% poisoning damage to them over 4 seconds. Okay. Modifier. When you take damage from damage over time effect, you have 5% chance to be healed instead. Increased by 50% of your poison resistance bonus by up to a 15%. Torusk's Rage. Damaging crowd control enemies makes the surrounding enemies unstoppable. But you gain 10.5% increased damage, attack speed, and movement speed for 3 seconds. Modifier gain 5% attack speed and increased damage for 1% crowd control up to a maximum of 10.5%. Must be required in Torment 1 or higher, so these are higher tier ones. Belial's Crystal Decoy. When you cast an Agility, Defensive, or Macabre skill, spawn a crystal that taunts enemies and explodes after 3 seconds, dealing 600% shadow damage. Modifier. After your main boss power fears enemies for 0.75 seconds, deals 50% shadow damage to them. Lilith's Wind of Hate. When you cast a skill, attacks enemies with a wave of spikes that lasts for 2 seconds and deals 250% physical damage. Enemies take 60% times increased damage from the Winds of Hate each time it hits them, up to 300%. Modifier. Hitting an elite enemy with the main boss power creates an inert blister clone with 10% of their maximum life for 15 seconds. Killing the blister removes 5.25% of the elite's life. An elite can have up to 3 blisters active at once, except for world bosses. Duriel's Burrow. We saw this one during the stream. So you can go underground. That's kind of cool. When you evade, you now burrow underground, immobilizing surrounding enemies for 5 seconds and dealing 200% of your entry and exit damage. You deal 200% damage every 0.25 seconds while burrowed. Evade's cooldown is increased by 4 seconds. Cooldown reduction on evade is 50% as effective. You should have your girlfriend give us the recipe for the goulash so we can give it a try. You always make it sound so good. It is good. I will tell her to come give the recipe right now here. I have sent the message, so if she shows up to give the recipe for goulash, you guys need to write it down. What's next? You guys are messing me up here. Why are you guys messing me up? Modifier. Activating your main boss power grants you 21% increased dodge chance for 2 seconds. Whenever you dodge an attack, you mobilize nearby enemies for 3 seconds. Belial's High Beams, obtained after defeating Exalted Lair boss Belial, Lord of Lies. After you drink a healing potion, gain 75% damage reduction for 2 seconds and summon eye beams that corrupt enemies for 1,750 damage over 3 seconds. Then your healing potion becomes disabled for 5 seconds. You may drink your healing potion at full health. Modifier. Activating your main boss power grants Unbreakable Stealth for 2 seconds. You deal 11% times increased overpower damage while stealthed. And Dariel's Flaming Skull. After standing still for 1 second, summon a skull for 4 seconds that rotates around you and breathes fire that burns enemies for 1,200% enhanced damage over 3 seconds. That just sounds like a normal girlfriend. I'm just kidding. Modifier. Burning enemies for 21% more damage from your damage over time effects for 5 seconds. After activating your main boss power, all of your attacks burn enemies for 1,800% damage over 3 seconds. Beast in Ice Sleet, obtained after defeating the Initiate Lair boss, Beast in the Ice. After casting 3 skills which apply crowd control or stagger effects, shoot out sleet spikes that deal 800% cool damage and freeze enemies for 2 seconds. Modifier. Your main boss power now chills enemies damages for 2.5%. Gregoria's Lightning Square. I thought that was kind of cool. After you cast a core skill, lightning tiles go outward from you for 1.2 seconds, dealing 300% lightning damage per strike. Modifier. Once per activation, damaging an enemy with your main boss power stuns enemies it hits for 0.25 seconds. Lord Zier's Blood Pool. After you damage an enemy, spawn a pool of blood that deals 400% bleeding damage per second over 4 seconds. And you can have up to 3 active blood pools. That sounds really fun for like a bleed barbarian build. Modifier. Activating your main boss power heals you for 5.5% maximum life over 3 seconds. Varshan's Lifesteal. Every time you lose 25% maximum life after leeching a leeching beam to the attacker, which restores 10% of maximum life and deals 1,200% corrupting damage over 3 seconds to them. So remember, corrupting was is the new term for shadow damage over time, for those of you who may have missed that. Next, Urvar's Lobbed Bombs. After you cast an ultimate skill, lob 4 bombs and deal 80% fire damage, and reduce your ultimate skill's cooldown by 5 seconds. Killing an enemy with your main boss power reduces your ultimate skill's cooldown by 0.2 seconds. Harbinger of Hatred's Volley. That's the Mephisto knockoff. After damaging a vulnerable enemy, shoot piercing projectiles that last 1.3 seconds, dealing 400% fire damage, and applying vulnerable deals 40% times increased damage to vulnerable enemies. Or modifier, casting a basic skill while at maximum resource, spends it all to make all nearby enemies vulnerable. Activating your main boss power grants 11% times increased vulnerable damage for 5 seconds. Belial makes his first bid for Sanctuary since Lilith met her tragic end. His apparition monsters, illusionary foot soldiers who sow his lies into reality, have been spotted throughout Sanctuary. You must cull them from your home by participating in the new apparition incursion event. Any character playing on any difficulty level can participate in this event. The event occurs in a different part of Sanctuary's wilderness every few minutes, so keep an eye on your map for its current location. Once you've arrived, it's time to send the imposters back to their master's imagination. Apparition monsters can be identified by Belial's mark of sickening green eye on their bodies. Cutting deep through the monster's rank will force 1 of 10 apparition bosses to hunt you down. Killing them will provide you with their unique boss power. You'll run through this test a second time before Belial, a more comprehensive version of him, attempts to smite you. Completing the Apparition Incursion event is a great way to unlock new boss powers while leveling up your character. They talked about the Lair boss rework in detail. I don't really feel like we need to go over this again. I'm gonna summarize it as best I can. So essentially what they did is they took the summoning mats away from actually summoning the monster, and instead they're using the summoning mats to now open the chest. Not everybody has to have the materials to open the chest. In fact, say for instance you only had one person with a chest key and the other 3 people did not have a chest key, well then that one person can open the chest and that one person can get the loot and the other 3 people don't. But you can still participate in the fight. But if you want loot, you do have to have a key, and the keys are basically just the same thing as the mats that we were using before. They just kind of converted the mats into keys. And they split them up into tiers. So there's the baby tier bosses, the higher tier bosses, the end tier bosses, and then finally the pinnacle tier boss, which I believe Belial is taking the place of they called it exalted boss. And you're going to have to get the specific keys to open the chests. It doesn't sound like it's all that much different than what we had before. They're just trying to simplify it a little bit. I don't think it's going to be that confusing. They showed a bunch of new legendary items, and I'm not going to go over the legendary items here because that's just stupid. I actually have pictures of the legendary items, which is better, but let's go ahead and fast forward past that, and then I'm going to pull up the actual pictures of the legendary items, or the new unique items, sorry. So let's start with the Barbarian. So this is the Barbarian's unique item. It's called Bane of Ajad Den, which seems to be based around Mighty Throw and kind of preventing you from spamming Mighty Throw. So the entire idea of this item, from what I could tell by what they showed and what they said, and actually how it's written, is that it makes it so that your Mighty Throw has a massive explosion, but it also kind of reduces the overall rate at which you can fire them. So instead of doing a whole bunch of little small explosion Mighty Throws, you're going to do one big giant Mighty Throw, which is basically how this item seems to be designed. It's to kind of make it so that you can hit one time really, really hard, as opposed to 10 times, softly. Then there's the Druid item, which actually does look really interesting. It basically makes it so that you can have access to Perfect Storm and Earthen Might key passives at the same time as another key passive. which I immediately thought of Nature's Fury. So like running a Nature's Fury build with both Earthen Might and Perfect Storm at the same time sounds absolutely insane. And probably going to be pretty dang OP, to be perfectly honest. Storm Strike's damage is increased by 50% times and increases the damage that the target takes from you. Your other skills by 40% times for 6 seconds. That's kind of cool too. Then they also added the Necromancer unique. So this is the one that has to do with like summons and the Vampiric Curse. So they're basically just using the Vampiric Curse mechanic from the previous season, so the Season of Blood. And Vampiric Curse is kind of like been in the game for a while. There's actually an aspect you can use that triggers the Vampiric Curse. And I mean, it looks kind of interesting. I'm not really 100% sure how good it's going to be, but essentially every time you utilize it, it's going to unleash all these little skeleton warriors that are going to like go out and they're going to basically hit everything. The Vampire Curse also has some added benefits like making monsters vulnerable, I'm pretty sure. So you get like permanent vulnerable uptime. It looks kind of interesting. I'm not sure. It's a two-handed weapon though, and it is going to like consume some aspect slots, and the Necromancer is always very aspect poor. Then we've got Bands of Icarus Rose, which is the one for Poison Trap. So the Poison Trap one makes it so that Poison Trap always deals full damage over 3 seconds, and it benefits from all of its upgrades. I don't like making the Poison Trap shorter. I never really enjoyed that, so I'm not sure about that. But it definitely did seem like it did some pretty good damage. It also, they're making it so that the Poison Trap has benefits. So you're getting like benefits from combo points. You're getting benefits from your inner sight having no cooldown, or like making it so the cooldown is reduced with preparation. So like overall, this item is definitely going to be really big if you're trying to do like a Poison Trap build. They also talked about doing some retouches on Scoundrel Leathers, but I don't think they showed us anything on it. We'll see if there's anything in here about Scoundrel Leathers for the Rogue. I don't even think it's on this list. No. So this is just all the new ones. And then we've got the Sorceress. The Sorceress got this interesting item that turned Ice Shards into like a multi-shot ability. And, I mean, it looked cool. I'm not gonna lie, okay? So, like, having Ice Shards be multi-shot looked cool. But Ice Shards has never been an ability that didn't do good AoE damage. Like, it always did good AoE damage. So they gave it more AoE damage. But, like, what it really needed was more single-target damage. Ice Shards has always been very inferior when it comes to single-target damage output. I'm hoping that maybe like the damage bonus that it's giving here will actually make it so that the single target is higher. But if it's just giving you more AoE damage to Ice Shards, I'm not really sure that it's going to be the best unique in the world. It's definitely going to be one of those things that we'll have to play around with. Then there's the Spiritborn. So the Spiritborn got a unique for Storm Feathers. Basically making it so that every time you pick up some of your Storm Feathers, you get like a fire tornado, basically like a hurricane, like on Diablo 2, but like a fire hurricane that kind of like builds around you and gets larger as you collect more and more. And then, and I'm not really sure about this one. Like it's fire damage and Storm Feather is lightning damage, and like you're going to be building lightning damage, so the fire damage, I don't know. It's a little strange to have fire damage tied together with a lightning damage ability, but I mean it looks like it could definitely function or like pull into at least the Storm Feather build. Like there's a lot of Storm Feather builds out there. I've seen a couple of them. Leon made a couple of them. So it could definitely fit into a Storm Feather build at the very least. Missing any? Okay. All right, so moving on. They got the account copy thing. Last season or last PTR, you could actually do a copy of your account. So there was a button where you could actually deliberately copy your account. So if you guys are looking to do that, it was actually in the PTR. There was like a little button at the top. It was like a little tiny red button, and you clicked on it, and it allowed you to copy your account over. The PTR boost, they did say the PTR boost is not going to be available right at the start. And I think they said that it was going to be like 2 days in or 3 days into the PTR is when you would actually be able to have access to the PTR boosts. So I don't, yeah, it says right here, the PTR boost NPC will not be available March 11th to the 12th. I'm trying to see here. There's anything else important in this list that we didn't already like go over. Most of the stuff is just pretty standard stuff. Like they give the ability to like level up your character to 50 or to max, etc. Are these the patch notes? Okay, these are the patch notes. You already saw the rip and tear aspect. We already saw that unique. Rushing Claw base damage increased from 50 to 60%. My girlfriend said piece of the Porsche just fell on her head. Poised Rushing Claw. Previous, when Rushing Claw hits an elite enemy, you gain 10% increased dodge chance for 6 seconds. Now Rushing Claw has a 20 maximum charges, and casting it consumes all of its charges to increase the damage by 25% times per charge and hits a larger area. The Seeker, rank 5 bonus capped at 200% damage increased. The Devourer, bad damage. So they're basically capping off all the ultimates, which is pretty much expected because they were like running wild before. So the thing about them was it just didn't make any sense. The whole thing with like the actual unlimited power of these, and it makes sense for them to cap them off because they were just scaling to the moon. Like the amount of damage you were getting out of them was absolutely insane. Legendary aspects. Aspect of recalling feathers. Legendary ranks increased from 8 to 21. Damage increased from 64% to 150% weapon damage. Aspect of falling feathers. Legendary ranks increased from 8 to 21. What does it mean, legendary ranks increased from 8 to 21? All of them are saying this. Are they talking about like the ranks of the actual aspect itself? So they're increasing the ranks of the aspects. So we're going to get a much higher maximum rank on the aspects. Damage increased from 45 to 65% on Wild Claws, 65 to 85% of Rake's base damage. Rune words. Rune words is in here. Zanrune, your next skill critically overpowers previous. Now your next skill will cause your hits to be guaranteed critical strike and overpower for 0.25 seconds. Overflow 0.35% damage per offering. Offering reduced from 700 to 300. Cax, QAX, previous, your next non-basic skill spends all your primary resource and doubles the damage. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Casting a skill other than a basic or defensive spends all your primary resource to increase your damage by 100% for 1 second. Vex Rune, +1 skills for 10 seconds, overflow more ranks. Offering cost reduced from 150 to 100. Lumrune offering gain increased from 2.5 to 3.5%. That's a big change. Ahu, previous lucky hit 100% when hitting an energy enemy. Now lucky hit 100% when hitting a non-healthy enemy. Okay, that's definitely an increase, but the offering was then reduced from 25 to 15. Tech Rune, damage reduced from 1400 to 1000%. Of course. Fixed an issue where Intricacy passive would not correctly remember which skill was last used when transferring to a new zone. Fixed an issue that allowed for snapshotting of Resilient passive. Fixed an issue where resource generation stats for other classes would display in character stats for Spiritborn players. Fixed an issue where casting the Hunter could cause the Wanderer to get partially stuck under the ground. Fixed an issue where Spiritborn's in-fighter legendary Paragon node did not display its bonus, and gaining a new stack would not refresh all stacks. Fixed an issue where 2 identical timers for Cross Undercity could runs would display the playing while playing co-op. Fix an issue where the Zal rune would play the heal sound effect when at full life. Fix an issue where swapping weapons would end Ja Rune's teleport buff. Fixed an issue where the Nagu and a Set combo would sometimes break if the target died before the Spirit Wolf tries to do its ice explosion. Fixed an issue where some of the text on the Que rune was displaying an incorrect font. And then we got the Barbarian, which we already looked at, the unique item, and the new aspect. Same thing with the new Barbarian unique and the new aspect. And there's the Necromancer unique and the new aspect. We already looked at all these. I actually showed you pictures, which is much better than the text version of these. Balanced updates. Fist of Fate. Lucky hit chance to apply random crowd control affix has been replaced with lucky hit chance to make enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. Azure Wrath. Lucky hit chance to deal cold damage affix increased. Exact amount depends on item power. The highest damage increase approximately 150%. Previous lucky hit up to a 20% chance to freeze enemies for 2 seconds and deal cold damage to them. Now your cast with this weapon apply vulnerable for 3 seconds and chill enemies for 10 to 30%. Frost Burns. Lucky hit up to a 20 to 60% chance to freeze enemies for 3 seconds. Now you deal 15 to 35% increased fire damage to chilled enemies and 15 to 35% times increased cold damage to burning enemies. Okay. Aspect of Concussive Strikes. Lucky hit damaging an enemy has up to a 20% chance to daze them for 2 seconds, and you deal 5 to 25% increased damage to daze enemies. Now your daze effects last 20 to 40% longer. Dazing an enemy increases your movement speed by 20 to 40% for 3 seconds. Paragon. Dominate Glyph. Barbarian, Druid, and Necromancer. Legendary max bonus reduced from 20% to 12%. Tempering, Worldly Fortune Tempering Recipe, chance to apply crowd control effects has been removed. New affixes, Lucky Hit Chance, Impairment Reduction, and Crowd Control Duration. Natural Schemes, Tempering Recipe, Crowd Control Duration affix replaced with Fortify Generation affix. Barbarian, Skills, Mighty Throw. Now Mighty Throw grants 25% increased attack speed for 6 seconds. Fighter's Mighty Throw, swapping weapons near any of your own weapons creates an additional pulse. Mighty Throw generates 20% of your maximum life as barrier for 5 seconds. Whirlwind, base damage has been increased from 24 to 32%. Violent Whirlwind, channeling Whirlwind for 2 seconds increases the damage of your next weapon mastery skill by 35% if used immediately after Whirlwind ends. Fighters, Steel Grip, Steel Grasp, not Steel Grip. Steel Grasp damage is increased by 400%, and if it damages an enemy, you gain Berserking for 2 seconds, so they gave it more damage there. Power Charge, charge cooldown reduction versus bosses increased from 4 to 6. Double Swing enhancement moved to Violent Double Swing. A Violent Double Swing moved to Enhanced Double Swing, so they swapped them. Ground Stomp, based damage increased from 80 to 140%. Tactical Ground Stomp, damage bonus from 900% to 100%. Ooh. They nerfed Ground Stomp. The damage from this update trivialized the leveling process, leading players skipping elite packs even when playing in higher difficulties. You're talking about like Tactical Ground Stomp's bonus? Iron Maelstrom, rank 5 bonus capped at 200%, which is pretty much expected. Wrath of Berserker, rank 5 bonus now always deals 500% damage rather than scaling with skill ranks. Passives, Concussion, Lucky Hit, skills using bludgeoning weapons now up to a 20% chance to stun enemies for 2 seconds, and up to a 30% chance when using two-handed bludgeoning weapon. This also deals 90% physical damage to them. Hamstring, which got nerfed heavily in like a previous season. What'd they do to this one again? The first time you apply a bleed to an enemy, slow them by 70% for 2, 3, and 4 seconds. It's okay. Expertise, one-handed mace, berserk duration doubled from 1.5 to 3 seconds. Legendary aspects of Dire Whirlwind, a number of seconds needed to cap from 3 to 5. Updated the formula to be more generous. This means Whirlwind crit chances increased from 3 to 8 to 9 to 36 to 6 to 10 to up to 28 to 50. Grasping Whirlwind. Whirlwind now pulls enemies to you every 6 to 3 seconds. Dust Devils, Whirlwind leaves behind Dust Devils that deal X damage to enemies in their path. Hitting enemies with Dust Devils increases damage from all of the sources by 25% for 3 seconds. Volcathos aspect, damage with earthquakes is removed. Damage with earthquakes removed. What? Isn't Volcathos aspect literally the Earthquake aspect? I'm confused. The third blade got some changes, apparently. Your weapon mastery skills are now also core skills that have 100% cooldown reduction, but Fury cost, dealing 50 to 70% of normal damage. Fury cost for all weapon mastery skills reduced by 5 baseline. The cooldown reduction breaks the cap of 75% and will provide maximum bonus of 75%. That cooldown reduction would normally grant of the aspect delayed extinction. Ring of Red Fur, after spending 100 Fury for 5 seconds, your next non-channel core skill, weapon mastery skill, will cast within 5 seconds a guaranteed critical strike and deals bonus damage. So they changed it from Hammer of the Ancients, like specific abilities, and now it's just non-channeled core or weapon mastery. So it has a much broader range. Battle Trance, new inherent lucky hit, up to 10% chance to gain a stack of Frenzy. Gore's Devastating Grips, damage now deals and scales with Whirlwind damage. Previous explodes every 2 seconds, and after it ends, dealing 80% of base damage, and delta surrounding is fire. Whirlwind explodes every 3 seconds as fire damage, dealing 300 to 600% increased damage. Critical strikes with Whirlwind reduce the time until the next explosion by 0.2 seconds down to 1 second. So it's going to explode every 1 second as long as you can get your critical strike damage up high enough. So boom, 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 boom. Okay. Tusk Helm of Jorits the Mighty. Damage bonus increased from 25% to 35%. Fury damage gained per second increased from 2 to 6. Twin Strike was changed after casting Double Swing 4 times. Your Double Swing will continue to hit 2 additional times, each dealing 100% increased damage for 3 seconds. Rumble Glyph now stacks additively with itself rather than multiplicatively per stack. Damages to bosses and crowd control enemies reduced from 10% per stack, 50% max, to 3% per stack, 15% max. So Rumble Glyph got nerfed. Dominate Glyph for Barbarian. A timer between free overpowers reduced from 15 to 12 seconds. Druid skills. So we got moving on to Druid now. Fierce Storm Strike. Storm Strike now makes enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds instead of a 50% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. Enhanced Cyclone Armor. Enemies who are knocked back by Cyclone are slowed by 70% for 2 seconds. Now enemies knocked back by Cyclone Armor become vulnerable for 5 seconds. Preserving Cyclone Armor. Cyclone Armor now pulls enemies in rather than knocking them back and grants 10% damage reduction for 4 seconds. I like the pull in. Initiate Cyclone Armor. Enemies who are hit by Cyclone Armor are slowed by 70% and take 15% times increased damage for 6 seconds. Enhanced Blood Howl. Killing enemies reduces the cooldown of Blood Howl by 1 second, and hitting a boss reduces it by 0.3 seconds. Grizzly Rage. Rank 5 Cataclysm slows surrounding enemies by 70% for 8 seconds. Isn't that what it already did? Wait, what? Why does it say Grizzly Rage? What? Petrify. Rank 5 bonus. Previous casting, Grizzly Rage knocks down surrounding enemies for 5 seconds, deals 5% damage around them. Now companion skills can be cast while in Grizzly Rage. Oh, that's kind of cool. Cataclysm no longer snapshots its bonuses between successive casts, so pretty big nerf there. I mean, it's a good nerf, but it's still a nerf. Lacerate, damage bonus capped at 200% times. Charged Atmosphere, every 3 seconds, Lightning Bolt hits nearby enemies. They increase the damage, it looks like, to 90%. And it's instead of 14, 11, and 8, now it's just every 3 seconds, so that's kind of cool. Boons Overload, chance for lightning bolts increased from 1 to 35%. Lightning Dancer's aspects, now Lightning Storm and Lightning Bolt critical strikes have 50% chance to spawn 3 dancing bolts that seek enemies in the area, dealing lightning damage. Your dancing bolts deal 30% increased damage. Sounds like a lightning spam build is going to be really powerful for Druid this season. Of Anticline Burst, now Stone Burst deals 10 to 30% increased damage and is guaranteed to overpower when it detonates at maximum size. Aspect of the Rampaging Werebeast, critical strike damage per stack changed from 10% 200% max to 3% 60% max. but is now grants multiplicative critical strike damage rather than additive. This change will result in a much higher damage bonus than previously. Paragon, Sinister Tendrils, Legendary Note. They changed it to Nature Magic skills do 35% increased damage against poisoned enemies. Lucky Hit Nature Magic skills have a 40% chance to deal 800% weapon damage or poison damage over 4 seconds. Necromancer, Blood Lance. Throw a Blood Lance that lingers in the enemy for 3 seconds, dealing 80% increased damage to the enemy and all other lance targets. If Blood Lance hits a lanced enemy, it deals 100% times increased damage and applies the lanced effect to another surrounding enemy. Iron Maiden now has a lucky chance 5%, and its damage can critically strike. Blood Wave rank capped at 200% times damage bonus. Supreme Blood Wave, Blood Orbs reduced from 6 to 3. Oh, they nerfed the Blood Orbs too. Bone Storm, rank 5, capped at 200% times increased damage bonus. Army of the Dead, capped at 205 times increased damage bonus. So it's just the same across the board. Kalen's Edict, your minions now gain 3% increased attack speed, 3% times increased damage for each minion. When one of your minions dies, your other minions enrage, dealing 20 times increased damage for 3 seconds. Legendary Aspects, Title Aspect, Extra Blood Waves, bonus damage reduced from 240 to 100% of normal damage. Sounds like Blood Wave got reined in hard. Casamade's Legacy, Blood Wave fortifies inherent aspect from 85 to 30%. Blood Wave damage increases per hit portion of the unique power has been removed. Blood Wave explosion damage increased from 200% to 300% damage. So they've like slapped Blood Wave across the cheek like many times here. I don't think Blood Wave is going to be anywhere near as powerful as it was before. Skills, Poison Trap, Lucky Hit chance increased from 20 to 25%. Subverting Poison Trap, looks like the damage was increased from 15 to 20%. Caltrops, they increased the slow from 50 to 65, damage from 45 to 60. Death Trap, looks like it got a Lucky Hit increase from 8 to 15%. Death Trap's pull-in effects always happen around the area the trap is thrown or placed. Previous, if Death Trap kills an enemy, its cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. Now, if Death Trap kills or overpowers an enemy, its cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. Prime Death Trap, enemies hit by Death Trap take 50% increased damage from your trap skills for 8 seconds instead of the slow. Shadow Clone, rank 5 bonus, now always deals 500% damage rather than scaling with skill ranks. Rain of Arrows, bonus capped at 200%. Passive Trick Attacks, attempting to daze or stun an enemy increases your critical strike chance by 1, 2, 3, and critical strike damage by 1, 2, 3 for 8 seconds, up to 15%. This passive will now operate on single target boss fights. Its overall power has been significantly reduced to account for this and make its place in the skill tree less oppressive. Additional bonus stacks are no longer multiplicative with each other. Trap Mastery, after a trap activates, gain 4% critical strike chance for 4 seconds. Exposure, previous 40% chance to drop stun grenades and reduce cooldown. Now, Lucky Hit damage, trapping an enemy has a 40% chance to reduce the cooldown of your traps by 30%. And increase your trap skill damage by 10% times for 10 seconds, stacking up to 100%. I actually commented on this. Were they watching my stream when I was playing my Trapper this season? Because I swear I was commenting on the fact that the key passive had absolutely no damage increase whatsoever. And now the key passive for the traps actually has a damage increase. That's interesting. Legendary Aspects, Nebulous Bruise. Now healing potions can be used at full life and grant 55% movement speed for 3 seconds. Iron Rain, the chance for Smoke Grenade to create arrow storms, always 100%. Writhing Band of Trickery, your subterfuge skills create decoy that taunts and lures enemies, dealing shadow damage for 6 seconds. This counts as trap skill, and only 1 decoy can be active at a time. They did talk about changing Scoundrel Leathers. New affixes, 25% movement speed, 35% damage to trapped enemies, 225% trap damage, 15% damage reduction from trapped enemies. Previous, while you have unlimited energy for inner sight, casting a core skill has a 60 to 80% chance to spawn one of the traps and gain 10-20% core skill damage. Now your traps can be thrown and will spawn a death trap every 10 seconds when you cast. You step through the shadows to your death trap when cast, gaining 10 to 30% increased damage for 5 seconds. So they basically make it so you get a free death trap every single time you cast a death trap. Okay. Critical strike damage bonus to enemies by your trap skills increased from 23 to 30%. Looks like they're trying to really push the trapper this season. Sorceress, Greater Fireball. Fireball now deals 10% times increased damage to burning enemies. When non-boss enemy takes damage while below 25% life, they are instantly killed. Blizzard, a new description. Call forth a frigid blizzard that deals 210% frostbite damage and continually chills enemies for 18% over 8 seconds. Deep freeze, of course, capped at 200%. Convulsions, you deal 5, 15, 10, and 15% increased damage while you have crackling energy. You periodically pick up a nearby crackling energy. Crackling energy added shock skill tag. Shocking impact added shock skill tag. Combustion added to the burning part of the calculation. These are kind of light changes. I think we're almost done with these patch notes. Yeah, we're almost done. Fractured Winter Glass now only spawns equipped conjurations on your action bar, so they actually have to be equipped. Starfall Coronet cooldown changed from 10 to 3 to 5 to 2.5. That's kind of good that they changed that range. That range was crazy. Aspect of Piercing Cold. Ice Shards now pierce 5 times and deal 50% times increased damage and an additional 10% more damage per subsequent enemy hit. Aspect of Shattered Stars, a bonus damage for Meteor now applies to all meteorites while this is equipped. Meteorites now do their own damage. Aspect of Frozen Wake, when Ice Armor is active, you leave behind exploding ice spikes that deal X damage. Spawning an ice spike increases your ice spike damage by 3% times for 2 seconds up to 30 times. That's pretty good. Paragon Static Surge, hitting an enemy at least 8 times a second with shock skills restores 30% of your maximum mana and increases your damage by 50% times for 8 seconds. This can only be reapplied once every 1 second. Enchantment Master, your enchantments are now 30% stronger, and each equipped enchantment grants 30% times increased damage with their main elements. Frostbite Glyph, renamed Cryopathy Glyph. Party Finder menu will now automatically close after successfully joining a party. Listing now automatically relists the party if the party leader changes for the difficulty level is changed. Loot activity and rewards. Whisper Cache Nightmare Dungeon sigils no longer drop from caches. Instead, caches now have a high chance to include sigil powder. Unique items remove the bonus and ancestral rate from unique items. Unique items now have the same ancestral rate as legendaries. Bosses, formerly known as endgame bosses, have been broken into 3 tiers. That was the Initiate, Greater, and Exalted. We already went over that. User interface, adjusted the capitalization of words. Okay, we named 3 damage types. That was the renaming of the damage types I was talking about earlier. So shadow damage has been renamed corruption damage. Cold damage has been renamed cold damage over time, shadow damage over time, and lightning damage over time have been renamed corruption damage, frostbite damage, and sparking damage. Tooltips for socketable items have been adjusted to improve clarity on what can be socketed into what. Automatic sorting of inventory and stash to be more intuitive. Now auto sort will push more relevant items to the front. This includes better sorting by rarity. The pip on the map in the game menu will no longer appear if the only new item is a cosmetic. Experience received for monster kills until level 25 has been reduced. Player power has grown considerably with the reintroduction of the seasonal power systems. This creates a disjointed early game experience where the pace of leveling versus other elements of progression are not aligned. This change reduces the need to constantly upgrade early game items, increases the relative value and activity of seasonal rewards, and creates more seamless early game journey. Players in the party can now instantly teleport to other members of the party through the social menu. Cosmetic items can now be consumed and unlocked while playing any class. Also, whole screen reader accessibility changes. Fix an issue where the Executioner's aspect was not increasing when on the 2-handed weapon. Fix an issue where the Bold Chieftain's aspect would not work properly when casting 2 shouts simultaneously. Fix an issue where the Ugly Bastard Helm was affecting some sources of indirect damage, such as thorns. Fix an issue where the bonus Fury granted by the aspect of Slaking was not granted while in town. Fix a bug that caused all versions of Earthquake to deal twice as much damage as intended. Fix an issue where Dust Devils and Earthquakes formed by Call of the Ancients while using Area Sparing were not correctly scaling with ultimate or summoning skill damage bonuses. Fixed an issue where Mighty Throw did not properly benefit from weapon expertise. Fixed an issue where the Earthquake damage didn't fully benefit from the Rumble Glyph. Fixed an issue where the Fury generated from the Berserk Fury aspect did not count towards the Devilish aspect. Fixed an issue where Nature's Fury would stop working when attacking the Lightning Storm in rare instances. Fixed an issue where Stone Burst defaulted to exploding to its rank 2 size regardless of the rank when channeled. Fixed an issue where Shroud of False Death could reduce the number of summonable companions. Well, you can reduce it. Necromancer fixed an issue where casting Bone Spear's injures memory always drained life instead of only when a corpse was present and when an additional Bone Spear spawned. Fixed an issue where Indira's memory additional Bone Spear spawned even when there was no additional corpse to consume. Fixed the bug where the Unmaker would trigger on itself when casting Soul Rift and using certain lucky hit effects. Fixed an issue where the Bone Prison was weaker than intended. Rogue fixed an issue where the aspect of Iron Rain could have triggered a trigger chance exceeding 100%. This aspect will now always roll 100% chance, and only the variance is the damage of the Arrow Storm. Fixed an issue where using imbued skills or any basic skill with the Cold Clip aspect always counted as using a cooldown for Beastfall Boots. Fixed an issue where Beastfall Boots would not empower trap skills when they were also core skills due to Scoutful Leathers. Fixed an issue where Saboteur's Signet Trickster's aspect spawned fewer grenades and the grenades did less damage than expected. Fixed an issue where Rare Agile augments Tempering Recipe chance for Flurry to consume no charges, instead chance for Fury to deal double damage. Fixed an issue where Shadow Clones would not benefit from dagger or bow bonuses of the Weapon Mastery passive. Fixed an issue where your Shadow Clones Caltrops were not properly granting the effects of the enhanced Caltrops. Sorceress fixed various instances where the Incinerate enchantment didn't interact properly with aspect of Conflagration. Fixed an issue where the second slash from Arc Slash did not have a visual effect. Fixed an issue where the Flame Shield and Teleport enchantments weren't getting the full benefits from the Enchantment Master Legendary Paragon node. Fixed an issue where the Elemental Synergies were improperly adding the fire damage bonus for familiars along with its current element, even if the familiar changed elements. Fixed an issue where the Shatter's explosion didn't damage bosses after the stagger period ended. General fixed where the damage variance toggle didn't properly function in the training grounds. Fixed an issue where the aspect's element bonus could occasionally be removed from the player or repeat the same bonus after swapping weapons. Fixing an issue where the Crown of Lucian would occasionally prevent other sources increased damage from functioning properly. Fixed an issue where Vessel of Hatred exclusive bosses could be set as Party Finder activity for players who did not own Vessel of Hatred. Fixed an issue where Party Finder listings could not be created from the map for strongholds. Fixed an issue where items could not be marked as junk or favorited after interacting with the occultist. Fixed an issue where the Codex of Power description for an aspect of Metamorphosis did not include the effects evade. Fixed an issue where the tooltip for the aspect of Elemental Constellation suggested all skills needed to be cast instead of any of the listed type. Fixed an issue where the Air of Perdition's tooltip did not actually state the distance at which it will steal Mother's favor from allies. Fixed an issue where the description for Druid's enhanced claw attack displayed its attack speed bonus as additive instead of multiplicative. Fixed an issue where the description for the Luckbringer's aspect displayed the lucky hit chance bonus as multiplicative instead of additive. Fixed an issue where the increased critical strike chance from the Barbarian's No Mercy passive did not display in the character panel while in town. Fixed an issue where the damage bonuses with Golems, Skeleton Mages, and Skeleton Warriors were not showing up in the character panel. Fixed an issue where the bonus movement speed exceeding the cap didn't display in the character panel. Fixed an issue where the recipe for crafting Malignant Hearts didn't have a prompt to show the required materials to craft it. Fixed an issue where the UI header to detonate difficulty level and hardcore stat denote difficulty level, I don't know why I said detonate, was not displayed all in the pit. Fixed an issue where UI elements for a wave number of Aether amounts were inaccurate when playing Infernal Hordes and local co-op. Fixed an issue where the description of the Malefic Crescent said damage was increased to instead of damage was increased by. Miscellaneous fixed an issue where the Master Tactician achievement did not reward the appropriate title. Fixed an issue where the aspect of assistance dropping for the ultimate skill was available, and various stability improvements. I mean, overall, there's some neat little things in here, but I gotta say, like, there's not really a whole lot when it comes to the actual changes to the items that's really all that impressive. I mean, the powers look interesting, and the new unique items look interesting. I'm not exactly sure about some of them, but I mean, overall, I think this is going to be more of a season of powers and new unique items. They did nerf, unfortunately, all of the ultimate abilities. So all the ultimate abilities that were doing lots of damage from the previous season, from season 7, probably not going to be anywhere near as good this season. They capped them all at 200% times. They're still going to do damage. They're just not going to be like crazy, ridiculous OP like they were this season. All right, guys and gals, I am starving, and I'm going to go get me some goulash. I will see you guys at 6:30-ish for the... I'm going to start probably a little bit early. I'm not sure exactly when, but I'm going to start early for the Diablo 2 Season 10. Hope you guys will join me for Diablo 2 Season 10. It's going to be fun. We got 8 Amazons lined up, so that should be pretty neat. As always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.